This is it, the official kickoff of the 2024 battle for the White House, and one state has the first shot at shaping the race.
It's decision time in the bitter cold heartland.
Iowa has a huge role to play here.
This starts here.
There's no way that Iowa is voting against Trump.
The first votes in a presidential contest that's testing American democracy in extraordinary ways.
Are you ready?
Will a former president in unprecedented legal peril get one step closer to a White House comeback?
2024 is our final battle.
It's Iowa's choice. Tonight, after months of anticipation, the Republican race gets real. Donald Trump aiming to drive home his dominance over his GOP rivals.
We gotta be sure that we put this thing away.
Ron DeSantis and Nikki Haley
Our best days are yet to come.
engaging in a heated showdown to be the top alternative to Trump.
Nikki Haley is running on her donors' issues. I'm the only one running on your issues.
If he's going to lie about me, I'm going to tell you the truth about him.
The candidates at the back of the pack fighting to hold on and get their messages out.
I see a Republican Party that has grown lazy.
Who will be left standing after Iowa votes?
I'm asking for your support.
And can anyone stop Trump from winning the nomination?
These losing candidates are not going anywhere.
He's his own worst enemy by not being able to control his mouth.
Now, it's time for voters to have their say.
Don't complain about what happens in a general election if you don't play in this caucus.
Iowa could shake up the political landscape or lay the groundwork for a divisive rematch.
We will evict Joe Biden from the White House.
2024 is here, and the first contest is getting underway right now.
You are looking at live pictures of the Iowa State Capitol in Des Moines on the coldest Iowa caucus night on record with dangerous sub-zero temperatures. But dedicated voters are braving the elements tonight to declare their choice for the Republican presidential nomination. Welcome to CNN's live special coverage of the Iowa caucuses. I'm Anderson Cooper.
And I'm Jake Tapper in the CNN Election Center. Less than an hour from now, the action begins in the first pivotal contest of the 2024 race for the White House. 5 major GOP candidates are officially in the running, but the battle for Iowa is expected to come down to this: the clear frontrunner, Donald Trump, versus the rivals who are essentially fighting this evening for second place, Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis, all of them with the shared goal of defeating President Joe Biden in November. Soon we're going to bring you the first results from our entrance poll of Iowans as they're heading into the caucuses. These will be early clues about what they're thinking as they make their choices. Our anchors and correspondents are on the scene. They're inside caucus sites where votes will be cast and counted, and they're at the candidates' headquarters as this consequential night unfolds. And we count down to the start of the caucuses and the first critical votes in Iowa. Let's go to my colleague Dana Bass. She's at a caucus site in Clive, Iowa, just outside Des Moines. Dana?
Well, Jake, we are here at a very large caucus site in Des Moines. 3 caucuses will actually take place in this one venue. You see, it's empty right now. People are just going to come in at this hour. And in 1 hour from now, we're going to start getting answers to the question we've been asking since former President Donald Trump left office in a way that he did not want, unwillingly, in January of 2021. And that question is, at what level does this party he joined and promptly took over still support him? Every single elected official, every activist, even campaign staffers I've spoken to on the ground here in Iowa expect he is going to win. The question is, by how big of a margin? And the big question for second between Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis, of course the stakes are high for both of them, but the highest for the Florida governor. He and the super PAC that supports him, they have put everything into this state of Iowa. I've been texting with some of his caucus captains, those who are going around to nearly 1,700 places in this Hawkeye state, and they are working on, at this moment, making sure that people have rides, that they are not snowed in, that they have childcare. All of that is so critical. And Jake, Bob Vanderplaats, he is one of the most prominent evangelical leaders here. He supported the last three Republican winners. He supported Ted Cruz, he supported Rick Santorum, he supported Mike Huckabee. This time he did endorse Ron DeSantis. He told me that the energy he's feeling is like he saw in those other three contests. No one will say so publicly, frankly, even privately. But the vibe from Team DeSantis is that they know finishing third, even a distant third, if Nikki Haley's energy is really robust, will really make it hard to move on. That's why, as one senior DeSantis advisor said to me tonight, he is running through the tape. Jake.
All right, Dana Bash, thanks so much. Let's check in with Kristen Holmes right now, who's at Trump HQ, I think in Des Moines, Iowa. And so much about this evening, Kristen, is about the expectations game. Trump posted something on Truth Social saying he was leading Nikki Haley by 57 points. I think that's not really consistent with the expectations game. But what are the Trump officials telling you?
Yeah, I mean, that seemed to just be Trump being Trump, because what we've heard from senior advisors now for months is playing the expectations game, even though we have seen poll after poll showing Donald Trump leading here in Iowa by roughly 30 points. They are insisting that any win above 12 would not only be historic, but should be celebrated. They have privately been telling me for months that they did believe the margins could be closer than what those public polls were showing. In addition to that, they've been telling me that they are worried that if he falls short of a 20-point gap in any way, that's going to be viewed as a disappointment at a time which they really need to be building momentum. Do they think he's going to win tonight? Yes. Do they think it's going to be a decisive victory? Yes. But the big question is, how big is that margin going to be? Will it give Donald Trump the momentum he needs going into New Hampshire? Will it stop the momentum that Nikki Haley has going into New Hampshire? That is what they're looking for, and Donald Trump himself has been doing his part. He has been urging his supporters to show up in caucus. In fact, at an event yesterday, telling people, even if you are sick as a dog, even if you vote and die afterwards, it'll be worth it. Jake?
All right, good stuff. Kristen Holmes with Trump HQ in Des Moines. Let me throw to Aaron Burnett and the panel.
All right, and you know what? It's amazing. And we're all sitting here watching this. Finally, we're here, Abby. The votes are actually going to start. And, you know, you saw Brian Todd. Caucus doors are open. People are going in. And yet it is this conversation about second. And what does second really mean? Right? There's second, and then there's a distant second, and these things really matter.
Yeah, and I think we should be open to the possibility that some of the kind of tropes of Iowa caucuses past, in which maybe you don't have to win, and you can get catapulted up to New Hampshire, and that changes the full dynamic of the race, may not apply here, because we've never had a situation where we have essentially an incumbent former president, who, for the sake of his party, is more or less almost like a sitting president. He is not shaken control over somewhere between 40 and 50% of the party since the beginning of this process.
Right.
And so it really would take something extraordinary for that dynamic to radically change. And for the candidates who are, it seems, vying for second and third here, I think at this point, Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis are acknowledging Trump is likely to win. It's still unclear what they think second or third will get them. And certainly third really calls into question both or either of their campaigns and the road forward to them.
And I think one key thing that Trump world is watching here that I've been talking to them about today is not just who comes in second, but also the size of the field. And does that change after tonight? Because they are much more concerned about Nikki Haley than they are with Ron DeSantis at this point, based on what the numbers look like, and also based on what state is coming next, New Hampshire, where Nikki Haley has been doing better than Ron DeSantis obviously has there. He has not really campaigned there near as much as she has. And what Trump world is hoping for is that this race for second place continues after tonight, because they believe that that is actually going to benefit him going forward. And their concern is if Nikki Haley does do well tonight, if Ron DeSantis is a third, if this is the end of his campaign, that then it consolidates Nikki Haley as the clear Trump alternative going into New Hampshire. And they don't want to see that. They want to keep up this fight between Ron DeSantis and Nikki Haley as Trump emerges as the clear frontrunner.
And what is the makeup, too, of Trump's coalition? If he does win, this will give us real serious clues about his strength and viability as a general election candidate. We have seen him struggle with suburban voters in particular. Even the most recent Des Moines Register poll that came out on Sunday showed that that was a key vulnerability from suburbanites, college-educated voters. Does he make any ground up with that slice of the electorate? If he does not, that will once again raise questions about whether he can compete well in a general election, which we've seen in last recent election cycles, where Trump is part of it, whether it's the midterms or him on the ballot, that has been his major vulnerability, what has caused a lot of concerns. And also Haley, too. Can she expand beyond Democratic-leaning voters, more moderate voters? Can she eat away into more conservative voters? DeSantis, too. Can he take away any of Trump's support from those evangelical voters, kind of emulate what Ted Cruz did in his victory in Iowa? All huge questions
Right,
tonight.
and we can get such a picture of all of this tonight when we start to see these entrance polls, but also when we start to see which counties, where does Trump well, do we see any of these changes on the suburban side of things? Jake, we're going to be getting all of this with some of these entrance polls, maybe a tease, and then a lot of these numbers tonight.
All right, we'll be right back with our CNN live coverage of the Iowa caucuses right after this. Images inside an actual caucus site in Council Bluffs, Iowa. It's 3 below zero outside, hopefully a little warmer inside. Voters here and across the state are venturing out into this record cold caucus night to play a critical role in the selection of the Republican presidential nominee. Let's check in with our correspondents covering Donald Trump's top rivals right now in their battle for second place, essentially. First, let's go to Jessica Dean, who's at Ron DeSantis headquarters in West Des Moines. What's the feeling there? Because he obviously really needs to do well tonight.
He certainly does, Jake. Probably nobody has more at stake here in Iowa than Ron DeSantis, with the incredible amount of time and money that he has poured into moving much of his staff here. And you know what's been interesting is out on the campaign trail, what we've heard from him again and again is he talks about what he's done in Florida. That's really what he pitches to voters, that he can deliver on the promises that he makes, and then he points to Florida as the example. But I'm told by a source familiar with the plans that tonight at the caucus sites, the many people who will be talking on his behalf, 2 people there who are preparing to vote, that they won't be talking about that instead they're going to be talking about Ron DeSantis, the person, to really humanize him for some of these voters, to really talk about, I'm told, fights that he's taken on these people's behalf, moments of personal connection that they've witnessed, to really, again, drive home his human side. We know he's quite reluctant to talk about himself on the campaign stage. He will bring his kids out. He'll talk about his children. It took a while for him to talk about his military experience, for example. But advisors and people close to him want him to talk more about this. And again, we're anticipating, told that that's what will be the pitch to a lot of these voters tonight who've heard again and again about what he's done, his record. Again, they want to leave the voters with this kind of this humanizing version of Ron DeSantis as we see the first votes being cast tonight in Iowa.
Interesting, Jessica. Thanks so much. Now let's go to Kylie Atwood, who's at the West Des Moines, Iowa campaign headquarters of Governor Nikki Haley. What are you hearing from the Haley campaign?
Well, listen, Jake, the Haley campaign feels like they have met their goals for Iowa, and that's the case whether or not they win this battle with Ron DeSantis to come in number 2 here in Iowa. And here's why. They believe if Nikki Haley comes in number 2, she's exceeding expectations, but if she comes in number 3, that's not damaging to them. And the reason for that is because of how much resources and time Ron DeSantis and former President Trump have put into the state. By contrast, she just hasn't put as much effort into the state as she has, across the board into New Hampshire and, of course, heading into South Carolina. They point out that Ron DeSantis, really, the stakes couldn't be higher for him, given the fact that he has a 99-county operation, that he has the backing of Iowa's governor, that he has the backing of Iowa's top evangelical leader. And they also point out that the former president has touted the possibility of winning the state by 50 or 60 points. So they feel like they are in a good position tonight with one of the folks who's familiar with the Haley camp's thinking, telling me, quote, it's not do or die for us tonight in Iowa.
All right, well, they're setting the expectations lower. I see. Kylie Atwood, thanks so much. Let's go to some of the key caucus sites where our correspondents are standing by. First, let's go to Boris Sanchez. He's at a caucus in Des Moines. Boris, what are you hearing from the Iowa voters there?
Hey, Jake, a lot of different varying opinions, as you might imagine, here in the suburbs of Des Moines and Iowa. I want to give you a look at where things are right now. We're getting a trickle of voters coming in. This is one of the key precincts in the suburbs of Des Moines, and you're watching voters first register. Some of them are coming in to vote for the first time. We actually just spoke to someone who said that they are caucusing for the first time for President Trump, in part because of the economy. Not sure who these folks might be voting for. Some of them may be coming in to potentially change their party affiliation, to change the registration. Soon they're going to go into a theater behind us, and that is where the action is set to begin. And one of the key moments tonight are going to be candidate representatives giving speeches on behalf of their preferred candidate. And right here we have Brittany, who is going to be speaking for Nikki Haley, the former South Carolina governor. You got a bag full of stuff from the campaign, including this lovely hat you're wearing, and you're set to give a speech tonight. What are you most excited about to share with these caucus goers?
Well, you know, as I was telling you earlier, my family is from Cuba, and so they fled a communist regime to have a better life in the United States of America. And as UN ambassador, she really understands the threat of communism to our democracy. So that's something that's just really important to me personally. And, you know, as a 32-year-old who still can't afford to buy a house, I'd love to have an accountant in the White House who can tackle inflation and get our economy on track.
As a Cuban American myself, I appreciate that love for democracy. I do wonder if you think the winter cold, this brutal storm we're facing, sub-zero temperatures, how's that going to affect turnout tonight?
Yeah, coldest ever, but what I've seen is that Iowans are just built different, cut from a different cloth, and I've talked to hundreds of people on the phone. I think they're excited to still come out.
We'll see how turnout might impact things here, Jake. For now, we'll send it back to you.
Let's check in with Sarah Seidner, who's at a caucus site in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Sarah.
Look, this is the second most populous city in Iowa. I want to give you a look at what you're seeing. We're inside the Kirkwood Community College, and you are seeing several different precincts. They've already started their work. There are people coming in. They are registering. Those who are Republicans, you see the gentleman there in that fabulous bright jacket, they will go, show their ID, and they'll look at the rolls, bring them in. There's also, you have the capability of changing parties, but you have to register as if you are just registering for the first time. So you have to register. We've seen people do that here too. We've seen a couple of people come in and register to be Republican so that they can take part in the caucus. I'm giving you a look because this is the rec center. It's quite a huge, wonderful building that gives a lot of space to folks. This is another caucus site here, and then there's one more. So there's a lot of space, and one of the reasons for that is that when they start the count, Jake, you will start hearing everyone talking at the same time. Once about 20 or 30 minutes in, after everyone is seated, they have their captains, they're ready to do the count, have their counters, you're going to see people start yelling out names. And they'll say things like, this is another caucus site right here, another precinct right here. You will hear people start saying names of the candidates. They will fill out what they have been given, which is a pre-printed piece of paper that has the candidates' names on it. People will choose those. They will hand those in. It's secret ballot, so you hand them all in. And then all of a sudden, the counters will start counting out loud. So we'll be able to hear in real time at each 6 of these precincts exactly who's doing well, who's going to be sort of the number one candidate, and so on. You'll hear people yell out Trump. We've got one for Trump here. We've got one for Haley here. We've got one for DeSantis here. And you'll hear that throughout this whole building. It will reverberate, and we'll show that to you as soon as it happens, 20 to 30 minutes in, so it's pretty quick. We'll find out where these folks in these 6 precincts here in Cedar Rapids are going to go for. Jake?
All right, Sarah Seidner in Cedar Rapids. Fascinating stuff. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with more CNN coverage of the Iowa caucuses, which begin a little over half an hour from now. Voters across the state are getting ready to reveal their choices. Stay tuned. This is America's Choice 2024, and we're back with live coverage of the Iowa caucuses, the very first actual votes in the race for the Republican presidential nomination. Caucuses are being held all across Iowa, and they officially get underway at the top of the hour. There's a big wild card in Iowa this evening, and that's the weather. CNN meteorologist Chad Meyer is feeling the big chill firsthand. He's in Des Moines. Chad, I don't want to sound like the crowd at the old Tonight Show, but how cold is it?
It's so cold. Actually, it is so cold that I drove in from Omaha today, and I could not, even with the heater on full blast, I could never get it warm enough in the rental car to take my gloves off. It just wouldn't warm up. That's something else. And if this was 3 days ago, we'd be talking about a cancellation. Jake, there were hundreds, I mean hundreds of stranded, stalled, rolled over semis in the middle of Interstate 80. It had to be an absolute nightmare 3 or 4 days ago when the wind was blowing 40, it was snowing, and people were just sliding off the roads. I couldn't believe there were still hundreds of cars that were still stranded and no one even looking at them. I mean, there was tape around them that said, yes, we checked this out, nobody's in here, but I'm thinking that was 4 days ago. But anyway, rhetorical question. What's the first thing you do when you get in your truck tonight to come down to the Iowa caucus? What's the very first thing? You might never guess.
Actually asking me, turn on the engine? I don't know.
No, that's exactly the wrong answer. Here's what you do in Iowa. You hit the hood of your car because critters like this warmth when you park the car. You need to scare them out of there. Feral cats, raccoons, squirrels, they love underneath the hood. I've been doing this now since, I moved to Nebraska in 76. So every time, even if you park your car at a Target, you come out of the Target, you go, and all of a sudden you might see something scurry away. You save your fan belt, but you save the lives of our furry little friends under there. They love the heat, they love to be here, and that's kind of where we are at this point. Is it cold? Yes. Is it cold in the wind? Very. Is it cold in the non-wind? Not so much. It's okay. Jake.
You're making a lot of assumptions. I mean, perhaps I want some, roasted squirrel. But we'll come back to that. Des Moines, Iowa. Chad Myers, thanks so much. Let's go to Brian Todd. He's at a precinct, a caucus site in Council Bluffs, Iowa. Wow, it's crowded there.
Wow is right, Jake. Do not tell these Iowans that this weather is too tough to come to a caucus site. Check out this line. I'm not going to say it extends to the door, but it is starting to, and these people are starting to file in to register, check in, sign in. And we just talked to a couple of voters here who said, look, the weather really was not an issue for them. Iowans are tough people. They're hardy. They can come out in weather like this. One lady just told me, hey, we're just glad the snow wasn't tonight. So here's where they're checking in here. Here is a sample of one of the ballots that they're going to be filling out. This is the basic presidential choice ballot. Look how easy and simple they're making this process. That's going to take place over there in just a few minutes. But right now, what I want to do, Jake, is talk to Marianne Hanusa. She is the Potawatomi County Caucus Organization Chair. Marianne, first of all, what's your reaction to this? Pretty good turnout.
Well, this is great. We need to keep them coming here. We want a lot of people at our caucus.
You talked to me earlier about some of the challenges. You are basically in charge of the organization for all 40 precincts in this county, Potawatomi County, which is a very active voting county. What are the biggest challenges that you've had in getting people to the caucus sites, the weather and everything else?
Well, to the caucus sites, the problem is not so much in the city of Council Bluffs because, the streets are, a lot of state highways, a lot of the streets are well maintained. Right. It's more the rural area where you might have a gravel road, and with these frigid temperatures, that just turns that road into ice.
Talk to me about what one lady told you. She's in her 80s.
I did. I had a dear, loyal Republican who called me. She's in her 80s, and she was quite upset because this will be the first caucus that she misses because she can't get out of her road because the snow and the ice is just too much to deal with.
What are you telling voters to reassure them about the vote count? As you know, in the last, 3 election caucus cycles in Iowa, there have been problems with the vote count on the Democratic and Republican sides. What are you telling people to reassure them that the vote is going to be fair, accurate, and come off without a hitch?
So the state Republican Party has worked extremely hard to have a system that is uniform across all of the precincts across the state of Iowa. We have caucus packets that are delivered, and we have to sign for them so that we know exactly what is in there. Some of the materials of that caucus packets you're seeing in action right now, the lists of registered Republicans. And then when it actually comes to the vote for president, that is a highly it's an orange form that can only be distributed by the Republican Party of Iowa. It can't be duplicated. It can't be sent via email. And then there's a very secure system for reporting those numbers back to Des Moines from all of the precincts across the state to get the final number.
And we're going to be watching you do all of that in real time. Good luck to you, Marianne, and we'll check back with you later on. One other look at the line here, guys. Pretty robust. The speeches will be getting underway shortly after they call the caucus to order. That's going to come in about 30 minutes, guys. Back to you.
Very exciting. Brian Todd in Council Bluffs. Let's go to Dana Bash now at a precinct in Clive, Iowa. Dana.
Jake, this is a huge caucus site. There are 3 individual caucuses that will happen in this site. They expect about 800 to 1,000 people tonight. It depends, of course, on the weather. Let's just walk and I can show you how big and how many people are here. First of all, this is the line for just one of the 3 here. There are people coming in from all over. I'm going to take you over here to talk to one particular family because it was noteworthy. You know, we have been hearing about the fact that this could be a family affair. Forgive me. Hi, guys. We're live. I just wanted to talk to you. Are you excited to be here?
I am.
Yeah. Have you caucused before?
I have, but I haven't voted before. So
Okay. So, and you're here with your whole family.
Yes.
Your mom's a little shy. That's okay.
Yeah.
And everybody else. What made you want to come out on such a frigid night?
I think it's more important now more than ever to just speak out and make your voice heard. It's hard times, and we need to make sure we have a good leader in office.
Okay. It's a secret ballot, so you don't have to tell me, but have you decided who you're going to caucus for?
I have.
Will you tell me?
Donald Trump.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you. So this is the kind of thing that we're seeing here. First-time caucus goers. We have people over here who are online. I assume, have you caucused before?
Yes. Every year.
Every
Since I was 18, yeah.
Since you were 18. So how many is this? Do you know?
I'm 65. Okay. So, yeah.
We'll do the math.
Yeah. A couple. A couple. Yeah.
How important? I mean, it is frigid outside. Some of the roads are not great.
We're Iowan. We're tough. Yeah. We're hardy. We're the breadbasket of America. And what we know is that this is saving our nation right now. We need to make decisions in regard to the average working family to get ahead financially. They are struggling. You need 11,430 statistics that came out from the government 2 weeks ago. You need that a year to break even.
Have you decided who you're going to caucus for?
DeSantis.
How come?
Because he proved in Florida, I'm an anti-vaxxer, I'm a former registered nurse, and he proved in Florida that he kept the deaths down and that with the proper medication that people did not die and they did not need to be hospitalized with extra costs.
Well, thank you. Thank you for talking to us. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Tell me your name again.
Karen.
Okay, Karen, thank you. So you see that this is the kind of thing that is happening. We expect, as I said, hundreds of people here, and we're going to hear when this actually gets started at the top of the hour, people who are representatives from the campaigns begin to make their pitches to people who came who haven't decided yet, Jake.
Dana, I did the math, and no one has ever accused me of being a math genius, but I think Karen has been to every single Republican
I'm glad
caucus.
you did.
Iowa caucus since 1976, since the first time that the caucus was first in the nation for the Republicans in 76. Check with her to see if my math is.
That's impressive.
I'd like to know who she voted for.
I will. I'll get back to you.
That'd be interesting. Let's check in with Kate Baldwin now. She's in Ames, Iowa, at a site. Kate.
Hey, I'm not doing math on air. I'm just going to say that right now, Jake. We're in Ames, Iowa. This is Sawyer Elementary School, where there are 3 of the 24 precincts in Ames are all caucusing in this site right now. Where I am is where everyone is entering. This is the check-in desk, and right here is where first-time, this is where folks can register. This is Tom. Thank you, Tom. He's been amazing to me. First-time registration, or if they're changing party, they register here, and then they can check in over here. And I was just talking to, joining me now, is John Joyner.
Yeah, hi.
And you were just filling out this form. Tell me what are you first-time caucus goer, or what?
Tonight I was just switching parties to Republican, so I've caucused several times before.
Several times, but for Democrat.
Last election I caucused with Democrats, and so this election I wanted to come back and caucus with Republicans.
Tell me why.
I've kept really close watch on the election and listened to all the candidates and try to make an educated decision, so I felt it was important to come and support the candidate that I chose.
It's a secret ballot, and here at this site, this is the critical tool, if I may borrow for 1 second, colored index cards. The caucus captains, they want you to put it there. This is the ballot. You fill it out. If your vote's not on a colored index card, vote doesn't count. It's to avoid any funny business, if you will. It's a secret ballot. You don't have to tell me, but have you decided who you're going to be caucusing for tonight?
I have, yes.
Would you tell me?
Sure. I've decided to caucus for Nikki Haley.
What determined that? What's driving your decision tonight?
I think she's going to be very strong in foreign policy. I was debating between her and Vivek, and I think her foreign policy is just going to be a lot stronger than what he was proposing. And I think with the current times globally, that's going to be very important for a president.
There's been a lot said about Ron DeSantis and his ground game, and what has been the outreach that you have been getting from all of the campaigns?
Texts and emails and phone calls, and then I've been trying to keep track of when the candidates are around locally so I can go see them in person also.
Did you know that, has it been Nikki Haley? Have you been undecided, uncommitted for a time? When did you decide?
I started out being in Nikki Haley's camp, and then I was considering Vivek very strongly, and probably in this last day or so, then I've decided to go with Nikki Haley.
Sean, can you tell me, if you would, who you voted for in 2020?
I voted for Donald Trump.
And why not caucus for Donald Trump this time? What is it?
I think his policies were good, but I think that there's just too much distractions with him as president, and that's why I didn't decide to caucus for Ron DeSantis. I just didn't think there was much change with going with DeSantis, and that's why I've decided to go with Nikki.
So fascinating. Which precinct are you?
23.
23. So you're going to be heading down to that gymnasium, and we will follow you down there and see you in there. It's great to see. Thank you so much for coming by, John. It's really nice to meet you. So this is just some of what we're hearing in Ames. Ames is in Story County, guys, and this is a county that broadly, Marco Rubio, he won with 32% in the caucuses in 2016. Donald Trump came in a distant third. This is in the 2016 caucuses. Guys?
Thanks so much, Kate Baldwin. That's so fascinating. I mean, this is what differentiates a caucus from a primary. So, John, we have now checked in, and this is going to sound like a verse from the Music Man. Des Moines, Council Bluffs, Cedar Rapids, Clive, Ames. Whichever one you want. Let's start with Ames. What are you looking for?
I want to start with where Kate was just right there, because this is page one. This is opening day of 2024, and that interview was just a fabulous snapshot of what I'm finding when you're out on the road as well. Disaffected Americans who don't know where their political home is. A man who caucused for the Democrats, voted for Donald Trump, considered Vivek Ramaswamy, and then lands on Nikki Haley. That's a ping pong of politics. And I say that with full respect, no disrespect at all. That's how people feel. Where is my home? Who do I trust? Who represents me? And that's what makes this so unpredictable. And so Kate is in a place, that, as she knows, Story County, right? This is a plus 17 Democratic county. If we come up to the 2020 map, Donald Trump won Iowa huge. She's in one of the places that Joe Biden won. She's in a Democratic county. If you have people who used to vote for the Democrats, yes, he was a Trump voter in 2020, but now still participating with Republicans, that's good for the Republicans. They're bringing in new voters or solidifying with this gentleman who voted with them 4 years ago. It's bad for Democrats. It means you're not winning people who you once had on your side. But so come back out here. Number one, Joe Biden wins Story County. Now let's bring it back out and bring it back. Oh, it doesn't want to come back out. Okay, well, let's come back to 2016 and see if we come to the Republican primary here. As this is a Marco Rubio area, as Kate just noted. The lighter red is Marco Rubio. What does that mean? Traditional Republicans. That's a place Nikki Haley, the old Republican Party, if you will, has to do well tonight. So the fact that that gentleman, a former Democrat and a former Trump voter, says he's for Nikki Haley is one sign of what Nikki Haley needs to do to build not only in that community center where Kate is, but where Sarah Seidner was over here. She's in Lynn County, in Cedar Rapids. Ted Cruz won this last time. Joe Biden will probably carry Lynn County come November, or the Democratic candidate, assuming it's Joe Biden. But what was Donald Trump's kryptonite in 2018, 2020, and 2022? The suburbs, right? That's why Ted Cruz did better than Donald Trump in the suburbs. He was third in this county in 2016. And if you come into the 2020 presidential map, again, Joe Biden wins this county by 6 points there. So do we see some seeds? If Donald Trump wins Iowa tonight, that's good for Donald Trump. But is it just rural voters, just evangelicals, just farmers? Or is he beginning to recover at least suburban Republicans? You know them outside of Philadelphia as well. Now, some of them are moderate, some of them are people who swing back and forth. But for Donald Trump to be a competitive general election candidate, he has to start to win back suburbanites, starting with Republicans, then moving on to independents and soft Democrats. So this is the 2020 map. Again, Brian Todd was over here. He's in Potawatomi County. That's Nebraska, right? So you're now much more rural, much more conservative as you get out here. Come back to 2016 in the Republican primary. This is a place, again, Cruz, Trump, Rubio. You had this split. Do you get this again tonight, now that it's Donald Trump's party? Do you get a split so that Haley or DeSantis or both can argue, I have a rationale to go on? Or does Trump win this and win this big? This is a place, if you come out here to look at the map again and bring out 2016 Iowa, this is out here. This is where Trump needs to run it up. If Trump wants to get above 50%, he wants to quiet any talk that he's vulnerable. Where Brian Todd is tonight is a great place to watch.
It's fascinating stuff. Let's go to Brian Todd actually right now in Potawatomi. How do you say it? Potawatomi?
You got it.
Potawatomi County. Brian, tell us what you're seeing.
Angie, we're about ready. Yes, hi.
Oh, his camera's there. Can you hear me, Brian? Brian Todd? Brian Todd, I guess that shot is right. Well, it looks like he's ready. Okay, let's go to him. Okay, go.
Yes.
What are you seeing there?
Okay, sorry, Jake. Well, we've got a building crowd here, and there was some question about turnout. I don't think those questions are there anymore because the turnout is very, very strong here at Kern Middle School in Potawatomi County in Council Bluffs. I'm going to talk to a voter here, Angie Thomas. Angie, hi. Thanks for talking to us. First, talk to us about the whole buildup about the weather and turnout. It's not affecting this place. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, of course, I'd have liked it to be warmer, but I think it was important to come out to the caucus tonight, and I was really excited about it.
You're switching from Trump to DeSantis. Talk to me about, the reasons that you want to do that tonight.
I just really like what DeSantis stands for. I think he stands for family. I like the clean-up campaign he's ran. It was really been clean. It hasn't tore people down, and I appreciate that.
Would the speeches by the surrogates maybe change your mind, or are you pretty much set in what you want to do tonight?
I want to listen to what they have to say. I'm interested in what they have to say.
So you might change.
That's a possibility, I suppose. It's my daughter's first time, so it was very important to bring her and see the process.
That's great. Is she going to be voting too?
Yes.
Great. How excited are you about that?
Really excited.
Is there a divide in the family about who's supporting who?
No, but I think everybody gets to pick who they feel strongly about.
Good luck tonight, Angie. Thank you for talking to us. So that's just kind of one sampling here, Jake. Again, a lot of buzz here. They're going to call this caucus to order in a short time, the Pledge of Allegiance. Then they're going to elect by voice vote the caucus chair, the permanent chair, and then the speeches will take place. The surrogates have 3 minutes. Very strictly timed to give their speeches. We've talked to the surrogates, too, about the messages that they're going to impart to people here. We'll bring some of that to you later. And, of course, again, what gets us really excited and why we love covering the Iowa caucuses, we're going to show all this to people in real time. Jake?
Just as our reporters have been talking to voters, so have our pollsters. And right now we can reveal the first information from our entrance poll of Iowa voters as they went into caucus sites across the state. David Chalian is here with that. David, what are you seeing?
Well, Jake, we are sort of trying to take stock of what does this electorate look like in Iowa tonight. Now, these are early entrance poll results. These are people who arrived at the caucus site early. These numbers will change throughout the night as we do more interviews. But look at this. We asked folks, are you part of the MAGA movement? 53%, a majority of those that we've interviewed thus far say yes, they consider themselves part of the MAGA movement. 41% say no, they're not. We also asked folks, do you think Joe Biden legitimately won the 2020 election? 68%, more than 2/3 of those in these early entrance poll results showing up early to the caucus sites say no, he did not. Wrongly say no, he did not win legitimately in 2020. And then we asked, if Donald Trump is convicted of a crime, do you still think he's fit for the presidency? A similar result here. Nearly 2/3 of those who have showed up at the Republican caucuses tonight in Iowa, at least these early arrivals, tell us, yes, Donald Trump is still fit for the presidency, even if convicted of a crime. These numbers show a very Trump-aligned Republican electorate, Jake.
All right, David Chalian, thanks so much. Let's go to Anderson Cooper in the panel in New York.
Jake, thanks very much here with the team. Let's talk about these entrance polls. Obviously, that's very strong support.
Good-looking electorate for Donald Trump right here. Yeah,
that's your professional assessment.
That is.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mr. Joyner did not respond to that poll. I promise.
No. These people have already joined. They're not joiners. Look, I think that there are two contests tonight. One is Donald Trump versus very high expectations, and the other contest between Haley and DeSantis for second place. And they're very distinct races, but the more vote Donald gets, the fewer votes they're sharing, and the closer they are, the better the margin for him. So, you know, going in, you'd think that he is in a really good spot, and this certainly reflects that. I just want to say one other thing. Organization, like I've been involved in Iowa caucuses, and you put a premium on organization. The Trump campaign has done that. The DeSantis campaign has done that. Haley's been late to this, and she's counting on momentum to overcome that. It could happen, and she could get second place here, but that would be unusual, especially on a cold night like.
And to add what David is saying, you know, this is the opportunity for the Trump campaign to show that they are actually able to build a proper ground game, which does have implications for a general election. Can you do that while you're also in court? Can you do that, you know, when your money is being pulled in various directions? And whereas Haley and DeSantis, in a way, they've semi-outsourced their work to PACs, right? To these outside groups that have unlimited fundraising, but it's proven to be a little wobblier in terms of shaping a campaign. Those are sort of inside things, but I think they're things that are important going forward to think about as we look at how these candidates perform.
I think two things can be true. I think you could look at these early numbers and say, this looks like a good electorate for Trump. But if I were looking ahead, if this holds and 32% of people who showed up in this caucus said Trump is not fit for the presidency if convicted of a crime, that's a troubling item. If that holds, and if it's a little bit more than what we've seen in some of the polling.
You think that's actually high, the 32%?
Well, if that were true, I mean, if these are like engaged, actively voting Republicans who show up and say he's not fit if convicted of a crime, I mean, you got to have these kinds of people in the fall to win a close election. And so I'm anxious to see how this shakes out by the end of the night, because that to me is a pretty high
That's
number.
the thesis. That's the thesis of the case for DeSantis and Haley. That's what they've been running on, right? That's their raison d'etre, right? They are saying that Trump's not going to. A vote for me is a vote for Donald Trump. That's what Vivek had said, right, in his piece there, and with DeSantis as well. That Trump's not going to make it for the long run, and I'm the guy to be it. And so, whether or not that holds true, we'll see tonight, and we'll see what the former president's numbers are. If he surpasses 50%, is it 52, 51? I think if he falls below 50, it's going to be kind of a loss.
But by the way, I think we may be seeing the greatest political comeback in modern political history tonight if Donald Trump does break 50. Because keep in mind, I know I don't need to say it for this table, but quadruply indicted, 91 felony counts, 2 impeachments against him, that in just 4 years, he is back to a place where he is dominating this caucus, very likely statistically, and is in first place in New Hampshire, the next contest. I mean, it's just remarkable what he has been able to do and how he's been able to shift voter sentiment back in his favor in such an unprecedented way.
Well, and then the question becomes for whoever does come in second here, can they make a sustained case for themselves moving forward? If Trump does go on to win by over 50% and can reasonably make a claim that he's had a dominant performance and clearly has a dominant hold on the base of the Republican Party, can Haley or DeSantis, whoever comes in second, make a case that they are a better gamble in the general election? You know, can they distinguish themselves in a way that I would argue we haven't really effectively seen them do in this primary? It's part of why they haven't been able to get traction. Haley, obviously, in a much stronger position in New Hampshire. You could see sort of an easier path for her coming out of Iowa, but that's going to be an important question for their campaigns is, you know, how do they quickly spend tonight to get
what do Haley and DeSantis need to do in order to move forward?
Well, I think DeSantis I think if he doesn't come in second here, after all he's invested in the state of Iowa, I think he's got a one-way ticket back to Tallahassee. But for Haley, she's got the luxury of knowing she's doing well in New Hampshire. This would give her momentum if she got second place here. It's not a killing proposition to come in third, but it will raise question.
Anderson, I just want to the thing too. We talked about this earlier. what if no one breaks? What if DeSantis and Haley finish in the teens still, right? What if nobody breaks 20? Right. If they're 19, 17, is that really, if you come in second with 18% of the caucus goers, is that really second place?
To Scott's point, though, I just want to raise one thing about Scott's point. Two things can be true. Donald Trump can be dominant in the Republican Party, and the results tonight might show that, and he could have major problems in a general election because of these 32% that you mentioned.
We're keeping a close eye on turnout at caucus sites as Iowans are about to cast the first votes in the 2024 presidential race in the midst of a record-breaking deep freeze. It all begins just minutes from now when Iowa Republicans decide who they want to challenge President Biden. We've got cameras and reporters inside multiple locations across the state to cover the caucuses and the results live. Once the caucuses begin, we'll have our first chance to reveal which candidate is the early leader based on our entrance poll. Let's go to our caucus reporters. First to Sarah Seidner in Cedar Rapids in eastern Iowa. Sarah?
Hey, Anderson. Yeah, this place is starting to fill up. Lots of folks coming here. We've got 6 different precincts. And we have this lovely family who showed up with their 2 very adorable, formerly cold children. Now they're here, they're warm, and they're the cutest things ever. Hi. Tell me your name.
I'm Eric. It's my wife, Sarah.
Nice name, by the way. I'm also Sarah. So Eric and Sarah, and who are these lovely little kids?
Lydia and Caleb.
Lydia and Caleb. Hi, guys. Hi. Are you sleepy? A little bit. Tell me what you're doing here. Have you ever caucused before?
Yes, this would be time number 3 for me. And
this is my first time in Iowa.
Okay, so this is your first time in Iowa. You've not done this before. Have you given some tips, or have things changed?
This looks pretty similar, yeah. Sarah was describing to me how things went in Minnesota. It sounds about the same, so just maybe a little bit warmer sometimes.
Well, Minnesota, I mean, it gets this cold there. That's like kind of the norm, right, Sarah? Like, this is nothing to you. So this is your first time here, but not your first time caucusing. Why do you caucus? Why do you come and do this? You have to go through extremely cold temperatures. You had to get the kids ready, and we know that takes a minute. Why do you show up to do this?
It's just a chance to have our voices heard and participate in the process here. So I've come and caucused ever since I was able to. It's actually kind of interesting to find out that we can be involved in the process. So if you're going to ask me, I'm going to tell you. So.
Yeah. And what about you, Sarah?
It's important to know who our leaders are going to be and have a say in that.
Do you guys know who you are definitely going for at this moment in time, or can you be swayed?
We do. We know what we're going for.
Yes, we do.
You know. And you clearly are interested in the microphone. One day, my friend, you too might be able to use one of these. You're very cute. So there you go. Been here 3 times, first time here in Iowa. This place is filling up, though, and I want to just give you a quick look at the room. Leon's going to show you, my photographer going to show you what's going on. By the way, they will start counting in just a few minutes here, so things will start to get really interesting. Guys?
All right, Sarah Seidner in Cedar Rapids. Fascinating stuff. Let's check in with Brian Todd, who's in Council Bluffs. Brian, what do you got there?
Well, Jake, much more of a turnout here than they anticipated. So much more that they have run out of these ballots. This is a sample ballot here, but they've run out of them. Many more people have shown up than they anticipated. So here's what they've got to do. Our photographer, David Albritton, can maybe take you past these folks and show you what they're giving to people now. Sheets of paper from a small yellow legal pad. That's what they're handing out to people in order to facilitate their ability to vote tonight, because they have run out of ballots. The turnout here, exceptional, much better than they anticipated. They've also got to set up more chairs in here. I'm going to kind of scoot over here while David shows you people checking in and getting their paper ballots. And then David will come over here and kind of zoom past me into the room that is pretty much at capacity. Marianne Hanusa, who's running the organizational part of this, tells me that they're going to have to set up more chairs in there. I can already see people standing in the back row. So this is going to be called to order shortly. She did say that people who are in line right now, when this caucus is going to be called to order in about 5 minutes, will be allowed to continue to register and check in before they start the caucus. So the short answer to the obvious question is yes, they will delay this for a couple of minutes in order to get people checked in and into the room so that the caucus can start. Jake?
Yeah, those roads are tricky tonight. Thanks so much. Let's go back to David Shine, who has more information from our entrance poll. David, what are the voters telling us?
we're looking at sort of the makeup of the electorate, how voters are identifying themselves ideologically. You see here 54% of those arriving at the caucus sites call themselves very conservatives. These numbers will update even as we go through them here. 34% say somewhat conservative. It's a very conservative electorate. In fact, it's more conservative than it was 8 years ago. This number was 40% 8 years ago of self-identified very conservative voters. The view on banning most or all abortion nationwide we asked about, 60% of Iowa Republican caucus goers tonight, at least these early arrivers, tell us they favor a national abortion ban. Only 32% say they oppose it. And in terms of the overall issue set, driving voters' decision, the most important issues for these Iowa Republican caucus goers, immigration at 37%, the economy at 36%, abortion at 11%, foreign policy at 11%. This is an electorate largely driven by the immigration issue and economy.
All right, David Chalian, fascinating stuff. And while we're waiting for the actual votes to start coming in, let's check in with John King at the Magic Well. John, who are you looking for in terms of where you're looking for? You know what I mean?
We're about to count, Jake, which is the wonderful part. People get to vote. Our last election ended with a lot of turmoil, even violence. Now we have people gathering to vote, and watching those caucus sites is a great thing. In the end, it's about delegates, right? You need 1,215 delegates, and everybody starts tonight with 0. So it's a brand new race. But with Trump so heavily favored, the question is, can he be stopped? So Iowa tonight is not about math. The math matters in the long run. Tonight, Iowa is about momentum. So let's just look at the map and what we're looking for right here. Again, if you go back to 2016, Donald Trump came to Iowa as the insurgent. He was the guy saying these established politicians, the Ted Cruz, the Marco Rubios, the Rand Pauls, the Jeb Bushes, the John Kasichs. Trump was against them. He came in second in Iowa, then went on to New Hampshire, and the rest is history. Now the question is, he's not the insurgent anymore. He is the new Republican establishment because he has, as David said, repopulated the Republican Party, reshaped the Republican Party. The one question tonight is, can anybody slow him or stop him? Because if he wins Iowa big tonight and wins New Hampshire big next week, then we do Nevada, the caucuses, or Trump, South Carolina. This could be over in a few weeks. The question is, can you slow or stop him tonight? And so where do you look for that to happen? Number one, you look where the people are, right? Sounds pretty logical, but Donald Trump does very well in the rural counties. See the smaller circles? Those are the small, less populated counties. The bigger population centers, Des Moines, the suburbs around it, Sioux City, the suburbs around it, Cedar Rapids, the suburbs around it, that's the test, both for Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis. Can you win over people who maybe they voted for Donald Trump, maybe they voted for Donald Trump twice, who think it's time for a change? Can they convince people it's time for a change? David Chalian, describing those exit polls, a very MAGA, very conservative, sounds like a very Trump electorate. That doesn't necessarily mean they won't vote for somebody else, because Trump has remade the Republican Party. They still think Donald Trump should be president. That's a shame, because it's not true, but it is a fact in today's Republican Party that so many of these people about to vote in Iowa believe the election was stolen when it simply was not. That is one of the biggest changes Donald Trump has had on the Republican Party. So what else are you looking for? Let me turn this off, and let's come up in here. If you look at Iowa in this state right here, number one, it's a state with a significant evangelical population. Conservative Christians tend to vote. They're a driving force in the Republican Party. Cruz and Trump split them in 2016. Statewide, it's about 12.5% of the population. In some of those rural counties, it's higher. Big test. Does Trump run up the board with them? Or, Jake, is there a competition? Does somebody emerge as the alternative?
We are just moments away from the start of the Iowa Republican caucuses, and for the very first time, we will be able to reveal the top choice of voters as they went into caucus sites. Their choices could change, of course, once they're inside the room and they cast this ballot. Right now we have this key race alert. And Donald Trump is the early leader in the Iowa Republican caucuses based on our entrance poll of caucus goers. And our entrance poll shows Ron DeSantis and Nikki Haley are in a tense fight for second place. Remember, this is all based on early results from our entrance poll of voters on their way into the caucuses. They could still change their minds once they get inside, so this might not reflect the ultimate winner, but it's a pretty good sense of what voters are thinking as they go to caucus. Dan and Bash, no surprise there, I suppose?
No surprise. The question is going to be what the margin is. And again, I should just underscore that I am here, I should say, with Casey Hunt and Chris Wallace. That is a poll of people talked to coming in. Where we are right now and where our colleagues are all over Iowa are places where they're actually going to vote, actual caucuses. And hasn't it been amazing to watch all these people come in these frigid temperatures. I mean, there are hundreds of people here signing up, getting ready to listen to people speak, and then cast their vote. You've been doing this since 1980. I want to say that in a way that shows the reverence and experience that you bring to this. And it's a lot. You've seen this many, many times.
Yeah, I have. The first time was Teddy Kennedy against Jimmy Carter. I was covering the Kennedy campaign. It didn't go well for him. Listening to these exit polls and hearing what David Chalian has to say, what becomes clear to me is this really is Donald Trump's party. I was talking to one of his top campaign operatives this afternoon, and he pointed out to me that the networks, cable news, I don't know who did it first, called the race for Ted Cruz in 2016 at 9:16 p.m. Central Time, 10:16 on the East Coast. And he said, we think that in the 8 o'clock hour, 9 o'clock on the East Coast, that somebody is going to be calling this race for Donald Trump. And when I talked to him about how big the victory is going to be, and they're not sure about 50% or not. The most that anybody has ever gotten in a contested Republican primary in Iowa, or in a caucuses, is 41% by George W. Bush in 2000. They say we'll absolutely beat that. The biggest margin between the first and second place is 12.8% by Bob Dole in 1988, and they said we're going to crush that. So we don't know the numbers. We don't know what the margin's going to be, but they say it'll be over 41%. It'll be well over a dozen points. They laugh at that. I said, well, what about Haley? What about DeSantis? This person said, we call them losers.
The reality here, I mean, everyone I've talked to says, okay, it's over under 50% for Trump. But you really hear for people, and there is obviously a huge segment of the Republican Party, they'll point out, well, if he's under 50%, that means that 1 in 2 Republican voters want someone other than Trump. I do think that's a little bit of kind of wishful thinking on the part of the party that has been, I mean, you can call them never Trumpers. I think at this point there's kind of an other than Trumper, universe out there. And I think the real question is, and the thing I'm going to be looking for about the second piece of this race is really how long is it going to continue? Only because if Ron DeSantis comes in third place, I think it's likely, and I've been talking to sources throughout the night, that you're going to start to see his donors, even though they were originally people who wanted somebody other than Donald Trump, that's why they were with DeSantis, skip over Nikki Haley and go straight to Donald Trump. And really the only hope I think Haley has of continuing to snowball her momentum is to come in second here.
Yeah, and listen, this is very, very close in 2016. Donald Trump lost to Ted Cruz by about 5,000 votes. The difference between then and now is vast. But when it comes just to the organization of the campaign, it has been remarkable to see. I was here in 2016 to see the difference. It's a real organization. Now you would say, okay, he's a former president, he should have one. But it is something that will, no question, help him, particularly in the areas, not like where we are right now, which is very crowded. It's a suburban area. The roads are plowed. The rural areas where it is very, very much Trump country.
There's certain numbers that we have all learned right now that are very important today and will be utterly useless tomorrow. One of them is that there are 1,657 precincts in the state of Iowa, and the Trump campaign has what they call a caucus captain in a white hat, gold lettering, not surprised, in each one of those precincts. And they are ready, they are totally organized.
As we get ready for the actual votes to happen here, I want to go back to David Chalian, who has more information from the entrance polls.
That's right, Dana. Now that the doors have closed and the caucusing is beginning, we actually can start to see how people are dividing their votes by candidate. So are you part of the MAGA movement? Remember, we said 53% of the overall electorate, according to these entrance polls, say yes, they're part of the MAGA movement. So how does that 53% split? Well, not surprisingly, since it's the MAGA movement, overwhelmingly they vote for Donald Trump. 78% say they're intending to do so as they walk in. 10% of MAGA voters for DeSantis, 9% for Ramaswamy. And again, probably not surprising that Nikki Haley is down at 3% among this cohort in the electorate. Then we looked at the white evangelical vote. John King was just talking about this with Jake. It makes up about 51%, about half the electorate say they're white evangelical. That's actually a little bit down from what we saw 8 years ago as an overall share. But look at this, guys. 55% of white evangelical voters are voting for Donald Trump, according to these entrance polls. That number for Donald Trump 8 years ago was 21%. He is more than doubling his support among evangelicals. DeSantis, who made a big push, at 24%. Haley at 12%. Ramaswamy down at 8%. Among those very conservative caucus goers, again, this is about 51% of the overall electorate that identify as very conservative, a larger share than 8 years ago. And it's Donald Trump's cohort yet again. 62% of them are supporting Donald Trump. Remember, this is half the electorate, and he's winning nearly 2/3 of that half of the electorate. DeSantis, 24%. Ramaswamy at 10% with the very conservative voters. Haley, again, making a bigger play for moderates and independents. She's down at 5%. And then look at how independents are playing here. They make up about 16% of the overall electorate. 16% of the overall electorate say they're independent. Donald Trump is winning independents. He's got 47%, more than doubling Haley's total at 20%. She's basically tied with Ramaswamy there at 19%. And DeSantis is pulling in 14% of the independents. Again, a small slice of the Republican caucus-going electorate. They're only 16%. But even Donald Trump is winning independents big.
Yeah. Absolutely dominant so far, David. Thanks so much. Let's check back in with Kate Baldwin in Ames, Iowa. Kate, who are you standing with? Who are these lovely Iowans?
These lovely Iowans, says Jake Tepper. Exactly, lovely Iowans that I have now become best friends with. This is April and Isabel, both Iowa State students, both born and raised in Iowa. Ames, born and raised. Des Moines, born and raised. Now, tell me, this is your first caucus?
Yes, it is.
And this is your first caucus as well?
Yes.
Okay, so why did you want to come out and caucus?
Because I want to make a difference and impact the world I live in.
Isabel, it's a secret ballot. I saw you guys checking in.
Yeah.
Have you decided who you're going to be caucusing for this evening?
Yes, I have.
Would you like to tell me?
Sure, Ron DeSantis.
What is it about Ron DeSantis?
So actually, I just listen to her family, and they tell me about who they're going to vote for. So they were telling me about him. And
Are you going to caucus for DeSantis as well?
Yes, I am. That's my plan.
Have you been decided and committed for quite some time, or has this been a journey for you?
I haven't really had a ton of time to look into it, so I'm kind of depending on a lot of my parents' wisdom because they have been looking into it and I really trust them. But I really like how Ron DeSantis has communicated, and what he's done in Florida sounds pretty good. And I really appreciate how he is respectful and the way he treats people and interacts. I really respect that, and I want that in my leader.
April and Isabel, thank you both so much. Heading into the gymnasium right now as we're about to begin. Thank you so much. Back to you guys.
All right, Kate Baldwin, go Cyclones. Appreciate it. Let's check back in with Boris Sanchez, who's in Des Moines, Iowa. Boris, what are you seeing where you are?
Hey, Jake, the weather may have had an impact on the turnout that we're seeing here in Precinct 3 in Des Moines. In this room, we were expecting around 200 people. Right now, we've calculated roughly between 40 and 50 caucus goers. And if I could ask the room, folks, if you could show me your hands, how many of you are caucusing for the first time? You see a handful, I'd say maybe about 10 or so people caucusing for the first time. So, they lost the shot. It went down. Thank you guys for doing that.
So we can still hear you. Boris, we can still hear you if you can. No? Okay. Well, we're having some technical.
Jake, yeah, so
we can't see you, but we can hear you. But we're gonna wait for you guys to hopefully get the weather gremlins under control. And let's check back in with Dana Bash, who's in Clive, Iowa. Dana, you there?
Yes, I'm here. I'm here with Casey and with Chris Wallace. As we were talking about earlier, this is the biggest caucus site, and because of that, we are going to see. Forgive me, they were doing a prayer behind me, so I want to be respectful.
A prayer is going on. Usually these caucuses start with both the Pledge of Allegiance and then a prayer. Iowa Tradition. John King, while we're waiting for the prayer to end, tell me what more you're looking for tonight.
Our reporters are in the right places. Sometimes you just have bad timing, whether it's technical gremlins, whether it's respect for the flag and the prayer. We have to do that. So what are we looking for tonight? Number one, Boris Sanchez was just talking to you from here, and he said that turnout was down. Anecdotal. I'm just saying this based on experience. But if turnout is down here, that's bad for Nikki Haley and potentially for Ron DeSantis, in the sense that the Des Moines area and the suburbs tends to be a Democratic area. This county, in the general election, is plus 15 points for the Democrats. It's one of the few blue spots in Iowa. But it is where you find moderates. It is where you find independents. It is a place where if Democrats, like the gentleman who was with Kate earlier, wants to cross over, you would find it here. So shorter drives. If you live in an urban area or suburban area, it's a shorter trip to your precinct. It's still dangerous. It's still nuts out there. But you're not driving 25, 30 minutes like you might be in some of these rural counties. So if that holds up, he's in one spot. Maybe it's not like that the next precinct over. But if that holds up, that's bad news for the non-Trump candidates, because this is where you would find your non-Trump voters. One of our voters from our All Over the Map project, Chris Mudd, was just texting me. He's here in Blackhawk County in Cedar Falls. He sent me some pictures. They got a pretty good turnout at his precinct. There are several precincts. It's a big county, the 5th largest of the 99 counties. Again, in the fall, this is likely to be a Democratic county. But there are a lot of rural areas where he's a Trump voter, and a loyal Trump voter. You have a lot of Trump voters out here. But again, you have a suburban area here where Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis, if they're going to cut into Trump, this is one of the places they need to do it. He texted me a photo first of the crowd showing up, and then of the Nikki Haley supporter giving a speech. The Iowans, he's a firm Trump voter. He's not going anywhere. They love this process. And so he's being respectful. He sent me a picture as the Nikki Haley voter gives. What does that tell you? It tells you pretty soon you'll be over here and we'll be watching the map fill in. If the candidates are giving their speeches, once they're done with that, then they actually get about the process of voting. And so our reporters are in the right places. Brian's out here, as we talked to him earlier, right on the Nebraska border, southwest Iowa. This is conservative Trump country. If Trump doesn't run it up here, if we don't see big Trump votes, then that's a sign we got something to watch. If he does run it up here, then the question is, if Trump is doing what we've watched him do every time he's on the ballot, run it up in rural America, the question is, how's he doing where you get into suburban America? And that's the test tonight. If Trump can do the rural area and then do fairly well in the suburbs, that's a big win. If they can get to him in the suburbs, and DeSantis and maybe Haley can compete, a little bit of Ramaswamy in the rural areas, then we got down. We're about to find out.
All right, fascinating stuff. There's much more ahead as we follow the action inside caucus sites. Try to track the votes when they come in. Will there be any surprises? You'll find out soon live on CNN. Back after this quick break. As the Iowa caucuses are getting underway, CNN estimates that Donald Trump is the early leader. Based on our entrance poll of caucus goers going into the caucuses, Ron DeSantis and Nikki Haley in a fight for second place. We are standing by for the first official results. But let's dip in and listen to Nikki Haley as she talks to Iowa voters.
So if they're willing to sacrifice for us there, shouldn't we be willing to fight for America here? Because we have a country to save. But in order to save her, it's going to take a lot of courage. Courage from every Iowan. Courage from everyone. Courage for me to run. And courage for every one of you to know. Don't complain about what happens in a general election if you don't really focus on what we do in this caucus. Someone asked me when I announced why I was running. I said my parents came here 50 years ago to an America that was strong and proud and full of opportunities. I want them to know that country again. I'm doing this for us.
That was just Nikki Haley talking in Des Moines as the caucuses are underway. She and other candidates, including Donald Trump, including Ron DeSantis, Vivek Ramaswamy, Asa Hutchinson, they're all out there making their pitches at caucus sites. Let's go to our correspondents at caucus sites right now. Sarah Seidner is in Cedar Rapids in eastern Iowa. Sarah, tell us what you're seeing.
We're seeing people come with generations of family members, which is pretty amazing. I'm going to let you meet, we like to call them the Allens. There are 3 Allens here. You've got Pop, you've got son, and you've got grandson. They are all here taking part in the caucus. I am going to start with you. You're Alan Ray, correct? All right. Is this your first caucus?
It is.
Why'd you come? It's cold as heck outside. I know you're an Iowan. I know you've been through this. But it is dangerous to drive around in these roads. Why did you come? Why was it so important to come?
Well, I think it's important to listen to the different candidates or delegates, representatives, to see what the different candidates bring to the table. I think it's important that if you have an opportunity to come in and listen and make an effort to make an informed decision on who you want to vote for and why. I think it's important rather than just showing up and just scratching in the name.
Okay. So we've got Alan here, we've got Alan Blake, and we've got Alexander. Your first caucus as well, so you've all come together as a family. Why bring your son? Why are you here?
My son is learning. He's young. He's learning. We stick together as a family, and we're just trying to be supportive and hopefully make America great again. That's what we need.
All right. I can tell by your hat who you're probably going to vote for, is right? Is everybody here as this Trump family? All right. Thank you, thank you, thank you, Allens. We appreciate you all for coming and talking to us. We appreciate you. And it's about to start, right? The county's about to start. Jake, back to you.
All right, Sarah, thanks so much. Donald Trump is visiting a caucus site in Clive, Iowa. Let's dip in and listen to that.
I got China to pay $28 billion to the farmers of our country because they took advantage of politicians that were doing a very poor job. And frankly, they took advantage of our great farmers, and it's not going to happen, and it will never happen with me. I stood up for ethanol like nobody has ever stood up for it. It has a big impact on Iowa and some other places, but in particular you. And we did a job like, frankly, nobody has done in a long, long time. We didn't have terrorism. We didn't have people pouring into our country. We didn't have an invasion where people are pouring in and coming in from prisons all over the world, from mental institutions and insane asylums all over the world. We have terrorists coming in now. In 2019, you probably saw the same chart. It was actually a little hard to believe even for me. They had 0 terrorists coming into our country captured. And as soon as we had an unfortunate event, we got more votes last time than any sitting president in the history of our country.
We are here at this caucus site in Clive, Iowa, where former President Trump is speaking, trying to get anybody here who is undecided, or maybe people who have come here and thought maybe they were going to support somebody else, to be on his side. And, you know, this sounds so basic, but listening to him, it's crystallizing in my mind that all the other candidates are saying what they would do. He gets to say what he did do. And he's going through a litany of all of the things that he did when he was president that people in this room love, on issues from immigration to international security. He even talked about the trade war that sparked with China, and he helped to give $28 billion to farmers, many of whom were helped in this state.
Well, first of all, when he walked in the room, the reaction was electric. Everybody, there may be people here for a lot of other candidates. There was genuine excitement. Everybody stood up, gave him a standing ovation. I completely agree with you, and it's interesting. He's not, at least the part that we heard so far, he's not talking about 2020. He's not talking grievance.
Although I just heard somebody scream, "You didn't lose," but continue.
Okay, well, you can't help the audience. But I mean, he was exactly saying how much better the country was when he was president than it is now. And I think you're going to see, I'm told, an increasing focus on Biden and a general election, in a sense that, assuming that he does well tonight, that let's get this nomination over with and unite and fight Joe Biden.
Yeah, I mean, I think, the thing that we can't lose sight of is that this really is a race between two incumbents, for all intents and purposes, in Joe Biden and Donald Trump. Donald Trump is one of the most famous men on the entire planet, right? It makes sense that he has been the front runner all along. And I think what really has driven that dynamic is that no other candidate has made a convincing argument against him or shown the country that they can stand up and become or be a bigger deal than he is.
You know, it's so true. And what you said about the way that this room changed when he walked in and the people here realized that he was here, it's a reminder that one of the main reasons that people love him and people don't love him, but in this case, it's the people who love him. It's because of not just what he says, but how he makes them feel. It is his the reason why he has been so incredibly successful with the people who are so incredibly stuck to him and would walk through fire for him. And I've met a lot of people like that here in Iowa. Not to say that he'll get everybody in this room. He won't. But the passion that he drives in people. Have you ever seen anything like that?
No. I mean, you know, to see the willful denial of reality and the percentage of people who don't think that Joe Biden is the legitimate president, or say, you know, I don't care if he's convicted, I would still vote for him. I mean, it's beyond any political movement I've ever seen. People sometimes call it a cult. But what you certainly have to say is that people are genuinely devoted and committed to this guy and are going to follow him. I mean, it's a movement unlike any I've ever seen before.
I mean, I think it also just underscores why people who are on the fence about Trump are willing to kind of go along with him, right? Because that's going to make the difference for him. He doesn't have enough of these hardcore, crawl over broken glass people to even necessarily to top 50% in a primary, certainly not to win a general election. But there is just this kind of sense that, and as long as he can say, I mean, listen, just listen. Right? No other candidate gets this.
No, it's true. And Jake, as you see the former president leaving the stage, I should tell you that right before he spoke, Asa Hutchinson was here, and you could hear a pin drop. And while he's speaking, Vivek Ramaswamy is also here getting ready to speak. He's been here for a while, but the former president trumped him when it comes to the speaking slot.
All right, Dana Bash in Clive, Iowa, Donald Trump behind her. And we have, let's go to Brian Todd right now, who's in Council Bluffs, Iowa. Brian, tell me what you're seeing where you are.
Well, Jake, this is what an overcapacity caucus looks like. I've got to speak in a bit of a hushed tone here because I don't want to talk over Marianne Hanusa, who's the organizer of this, and her husband, Charlie Johnson. He's the gentleman in the purple sweater there, who's the caucus chair. It's so overcapacity that they've called up to these people and said that they can't hear them, so they've had to rustle up a bullhorn, and now they've got the bullhorn out and are talking to the crowd about the procedures that are going to be going on. The surrogates for the campaigns will be speaking in just minutes. There are 3 of them. And they've just had the Pledge of Allegiance and the prayer. Just to kind of illustrate the family affair nature of this, people are bringing out their little kids. Look at these adorable little kids. The baby was a little squeamish a minute ago, but she's got them under control. And they're ready to caucus here, Jake, and we'll be bringing it to you in real time.
All right, Brian Todd, thanks so much. And let me bring you a key race alert right now because we have some actual votes that have come in. Let's take a look. Right now in Iowa, Donald Trump is leading with 74.6% of the vote. Ron DeSantis in second place with 15.4%. Nikki Haley in third with 5.3%. Pulling up the rear, Vivek Ramaswamy, 4.1%. And Asa Hutchinson with no votes as of now. This is very early. But right now, Donald Trump has 238 votes, which is almost 3/4 of the total. Fascinating stuff. Let's go to John King at the Magic Wall. John, where are these votes coming from?
Jake, 5 of the 99 counties have reported votes. As you see, some of these caucuses, especially in smaller population centers, but some we have from the Des Moines area, some of them wrap up pretty quickly. Some of them take a little bit long, especially when the candidates are speaking, like you just saw the former president. But let's look. 5 counties have reported votes so far, from the southeast corner to the northwest corner. So let's just walk through and take a look at what we have here. This is Des Moines County, not to be confused with the city of Des Moines. This is in southeast Iowa, 16th of the 99th county. So it's about 1.2% of the statewide population. Again, look at the small number of votes. We have a long way to go in the count, but Donald Trump, 95 votes, 78%. That's an early lead for the former president, as we're seeing across the board here. Let's just move straight across. Keokuk County here, central, southeastern, but starting to move towards central Iowa. Again, this is a smaller, more rural county. 78% of the vote if you round up. Governor DeSantis running second here. Ambassador Governor Haley running third with just 2 votes. But remember, again, you're talking about very early. This, let's take a look. This is your population center, and yet we're looking at 13 votes. And then let's just go a little bit lower and look down. Yeah, so 13 votes so far. So let's not make too much of this. It's just nice to get the first votes of the cycle. The 2024 election cycle is underway. we are counting votes. This is Polk County, the largest county of the state, so that's just a smattering. Let's just move up. This should be Trump country. All right, Hancock County, you're in the rural band across the top of the state. To the far east, you're in Illinois. You're closer to Minnesota, right down below here. You move over there, you get into South Dakota and Nebraska. Very rural country. Trump at 70% in Hancock County so far. Governor DeSantis running second, Jake, but a lot of counting still to do.
All right, John King, we can now make a very important projection. CNN projects that Donald Trump will win the Iowa caucuses. CNN can make this projection based on his overwhelming lead in our entrance poll of Iowa caucus goers and some initial votes that are coming in. The former president pulling off a huge early victory in his bid to return to the White House. Trump easily defeating his top opponents, Ron DeSantis and Nikki Haley, who are now in a high-stakes fight for second place. Let's go to Aaron Burnett at the panel. Aaron, not a surprise, but still, this is the earliest I can remember ever calling such a thing.
Exactly. Both things are true. Not a surprise, and yet it is 8:30 Eastern. Those caucus doors opened 30 minutes ago. And here we are, Caitlin, with a projection, and you could see it in those entrance polls, but, I mean, it is very decisive.
Yeah, and the question for Trump's team really here is how big is this victory going to be? They expected for him to win. Obviously, if he didn't, it would be like a meteor striking the earth in their world. Their question is, what is that margin going to look like? And you can see Donald Trump is speaking, his sons are speaking, he has allies and operatives fanned out at every precinct making his case to everyone who is at these caucuses. And it just speaks to the moment that we are in. I mean, Donald Trump 8 years ago left Iowa with a loss to Ted Cruz. And not only did he not accept that loss, he claimed that they should nullify the result and went on to New Hampshire. What he's planning to do now, we've now just learned, is tonight he's going to New York, and tomorrow he'll attend the opening arguments of the E. Jean Carroll trial, where the jury is going to determine how much he owes in damages and that. And then he'll be going to New Hampshire tomorrow night after that. And it just speaks to how he is really balancing the campaign trail and the courthouse here in these moments. And so we will likely hear from him tonight. But it goes to what this campaign and what this primary is being defined by, and it's Donald Trump's legal troubles, but also really decisive victories and a strong hold on the Republican Party.
I mean, you see, yeah, go ahead.
I mean, he's really made over the Republican Party, really, which what you've seen from these entrant polls is just that, the way that the voters identify themselves, either the very conservative voters, the moderate, the other conservative voters leaning towards Trump, but also just the fact that they identify themselves overwhelmingly as part of the MAGA movement, that they falsely believe that the 2020 election, Joe Biden did not win that legitimately. And if he were convicted of a crime, still a vast majority of these voters would still vote for Donald Trump. The question is going to be how much, as you said, the margin. And it's a warning sign for Nikki Haley in particular. If you saw some of those entrance polls, unless it changes, moderate and independent and more liberal voters who may vote in the GOP caucuses, they represent a sliver, a tiny, tiny sliver of this electorate based on the entrance polls. Real concerns for her and for Ron DeSantis, who has simply not cut in enough as he needed to do on evangelical supporters.
I mean, we talk so much about this race for second, okay? But you also have to take a step back and be honest that this is really taking the wind out of your sails if you're Haley or DeSantis right now, right? I mean, this is 8:30. The doors opened 30 minutes ago, and you have a very clean call. Now, yes, there's still a fight for second, but that is not the kind of night that they had hoped they would have, even in a fight for second.
It is still a hope against hope that any candidate, not named Donald Trump, is going to be the Republican nominee. I mean, that's just the reality of the situation. There's not a clear path for other candidates yet. And tonight doesn't really change anything, it seems. When you look at, just to pull out one of the numbers Manu was just talking about, almost 70% of caucus goers, according to our entrance polls, believe that Joe Biden was not legitimately elected President of the United States. If that is not a Donald Trump Republican Party, I don't know what is. This is not an electorate that's particularly interested in taking a different course. That's what Ron DeSantis is selling. That's what Nikki Haley is selling. They don't want to go another way. No. They want to go back to Trump in so many ways. They've been saying that. These candidates have been hoping that maybe they could change their minds. We will see what the real numbers look like, but the task for Haley and DeSantis will be to fundamentally shift the thinking of a large swath of this party. We just have to be honest with folks, that is a very heavy lift in Iowa. it's still a heavy lift, even in New Hampshire. And then as you get beyond that on the calendar, it gets harder and harder and harder.
The only other thought that I would add to that is that what Ron DeSantis and Nikki Haley are hoping for is that there is a stumble, that something does happen with Trump's legal issues to where they would be there in the wings. The issue for people like Ron DeSantis especially is money. You can't stay in the race very long if you don't have a lot of money, and his campaign and super PACs have been burning through it. And so that is a question of the longevity of their campaigns depending on how they do tonight. But they're hoping to be that Trump alternative.
All right. And, you know, as we watch these votes still coming in, obviously we've made the projection. The votes are still coming in. Anderson, I'll say one thing. You know, Sarah Seidner talking to the Allens kind of stood out, right? I mean, he had his Trump hat on. He was very clear who he was voting for, but it was interesting that they were saying they were first-time caucus goers, right? So Trump supporters, and they wanted to have that turnout, wanted to have that voice, and maybe that's what we're seeing here in these early results.
Yeah, it is. It's an extraordinary, not surprising, but still extraordinary so early. Alyssa?
Well, Donald Trump's literally broken every rule of politics. He campaigned the least of anyone, any of the top tier of candidates in Iowa, showing up the least, frankly, because he's been in court quite a bit. Yet he has won, and it's going to be likely a question now of how big of a margin. His team thinks it may be as much as 50%. We're going to see kind of a taste of what the general will look like very quickly, because tomorrow, as Caitlin said, he's going to be in New York for his defamation trial. Then he's going to go to New Hampshire. Then he's going to have to jump back here for a number of other cases that he has coming up. So he's broken the rules. It's worked in a primary because he is kind of the dominant force running as almost an incumbent. But that's a lot tougher in a general election.
For anybody thinking that this race goes on for Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis, it's very difficult when they don't even go after the front runner. I mean, at this stage, how can you make any inroad on the front runner if you don't really discuss the front runner?
Well, and also, you know, the idea that finishing second here so far back is any momentum. It's not a race for second. It's a race for relevancy. And everyone's losing except for Donald Trump. And, you know, if you look at the entrance polling we've done, if you look at the expected results here, this Republican Party wants to give Donald Trump one more shot to prove them all wrong, that everything was a witch hunt, that the election was rigged, that his legal issues are, you know, his just opponent. I mean, all the things that they're mad about, they want one more. It's obvious. They want one more shot at it. It's in the national polling, and we're seeing it show up at these caucus sites.
Yeah, there's one significant demographic that Trump has a real advantage in, and it's called Republicans. The others are relying on independents, on Democrats, and that's why New Hampshire is more competitive, because New Hampshire invites independents, and it's easy for independents to participate, and they generally do it. But even, this is a Republican primary. Most of these primaries don't invite independents in. I mean, this has been a steep climb to begin with, and we're learning that tonight.
Well, and two of the demographics in the entrance polls that I think are the most troubling for anybody not named Donald Trump is you have Donald Trump winning college caucus goers, you have Donald Trump winning independents. I mean, these are historically groups, I say historically, within the context of this race, that, you know, should have gone to Nikki Haley. And
or
here you see
the candidate who campaigned for them, Vivek Ramaswamy.
Well,
right.
right.
Like how much more effort.
Exactly. And so, you know, if you're Haley or Ramaswamy or DeSantis and you're looking for your path forward and you're looking at these numbers, you're not seeing a lot.
Also, there's some ways we have to acknowledge how the Republican electorate has changed when there are more people who actually began identifying as evangelical during the time that Trump was president. It evolved into, this is from Pew Research, I see your eyebrows, I'll send a link, but it means that it's becoming a political identity.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea that you can go around and genuflect at a variety of Sunday sermons and think that those endorsements necessarily translated to votes, I think is an old political way of thinking. And that's the kind of thing that I think when we look at this data, we can't overlay on it our political ideas from 2012.
No, you know, to your point, Audie, politics is a new religion, right? And so the narrative that's going to come out of here tonight, if Trump busts 50, he's at 51, 52, and, you know, Haley and DeSantis are still in the middling and the teens, it's going to be overwhelming, right? The Trump ground game is going to be just continuing to chug along and eat up, you know, delegates in all these states like Pac-Man. It's going to be amazing.
Jake, back to you. We are projecting a win for Donald Trump, but remember, the caucuses are still underway. People are still casting their ballots. They're still arguing with each other. Every vote counts. And that heated fight for second place is still unfolding. So let's go back to see a little democracy in action. Boris Sanchez is at the caucus site in Des Moines. Boris, tell us what's happening there.
Jake, so we are watching a window. This is a window into democracy. We're watching the ballots being counted literally as we speak. These caucus goers have just sorted all the ballots, and now they are in the process of counting them. Notably, there are campaign representatives here who gave speeches for several of the candidates, notably not one speech for Donald Trump. Yet, this is not a district that he was expected to perform well in. This is a precinct that Ted Cruz won back in 2016. As we watch the count, I've spoken with folks aligned with the Trump campaign who tell me that they are hoping he does well here because it'll represent a boost for him among suburban moms, something that I've heard John King refer to as his kryptonite in previous elections. And right now it looks like they are trying to decipher handwriting to figure out who folks voted for. It looks like Vivek Ramaswamy got 5 votes here in precinct number 3. They're counting through Trump votes right now. We just want to give you a quick sound, a check of what it sounds like during this count.
10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15.
Just from what I'm seeing here, Jake, it looks like there are only a handful of votes for Nikki Haley. Predominantly, the 2 candidates that have performed well here are Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis. They both have very large stacks of paper right now. The initial count, Jake, from Precinct 3, 22 votes for Ron DeSantis, 24 for former President Donald Trump. Again, this is a precinct that Ted Cruz won back in 2016. And here we have the former president at 42.9% to Ron DeSantis' 39.3%. Keep in mind, this is just one precinct inside one county. It doesn't give you a picture of what we've seen across the board. But as you noted, Donald Trump, the former president, projected to win the state of Iowa. And this is just one snapshot of what it looks like on the ground, Jake.
Thanks, Boris. John King, obviously, I don't expect you to know Precinct 3 history, but in general, this area of Iowa, Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis doing better. Does that surprise you?
It's bad news for Nikki Haley. Does it surprise me? No, in the sense that, again, what we are seeing from the early projection to so much of the statewide map, one county right now where Nikki Haley is leading. We'll get to that in a minute. But as you watch these counties come in and you see, again, it's very early in the vote, but a very early, convincing early lead. We know from our entrance polls, we know from our key precincts, we're able to make that projection. This is evidence with votes of what we've seen in the polling data and other data, my travels, political reporters' travels. This is more and more Trump's party, especially if he is doing well in urban and close-in suburban areas. That has been his weakest link from the beginning. He did okay in the suburbs in 2016, but as the Trump presidency repulsed the suburbs, 2018, 2020, 2022. So if in his comeback, he not only keeps the fervent mega base, but makes inroads here, and Democrats are saying, oh, they're just Republicans tonight. Maybe true, but to win back the suburbs, first you have to get the suburban Republicans back. And then you have to reach out beyond that to be a general election candidate. So this is the first contest. We have a long way to go, but we're looking for clues. We're looking for clues. How strong is Donald Trump? If he has a formidable grip, an inevitable grip on the Republican Party, how strong is he? Or is his march to the nomination, does it end up being a march to losing in November? If he's doing well here in Polk County, this is one of the most Democratic counties in the state, a lot of Republicans out in the burbs and stuff, but again, we're very early. That's 10 votes, 2 votes. Boris, the place where Boris is not fed into the system yet, right? He's getting live results on the ground in a precinct. They get reported to the state party. Then you see them here. So we haven't seen those results come in here just yet. But if Donald Trump is doing well here, and in here, where Haley's leading there, even if Donald Trump's a strong second, you can do well and not win everywhere. And here, if Donald Trump's doing well, where you see the city names, then Donald Trump is going to win, and we know he's going to win, but he's going to win big. And that's going to tell us some things. We're going to learn some lessons there. It's going to tell us some things about his strength, the depth of his strength, and who that is, who the people are maybe coming back to him. It's also going to tell us as we move on You can't match this county to another state, but you can make some reasonable, smart, informed decisions about how strong is Nikki Haley heading into New Hampshire. Does Ron DeSantis have enough legs to go anywhere else where there are conservative voters? That's what we're going to learn as the rest of this map gets filled in. So let's just take a look, because she is leading in one county. This is Johnson County. This is the 4th largest county in the state. So by Iowa standards, you're not talking about Pennsylvania or Michigan or anything. It's a relatively small state. But 40% of the vote to 29% of the vote. Let's just go back in time. Johnson County 2024, Johnson County 2016. So this is one of the things you're looking for. Does Nikki Haley win where Marco Rubio won? Now, how much of that Republican Party still exists? How strong is that Republican Party? The pre-Trump Republican Party that Marco Rubio thought he was the heir to George W. Bush, that kind of a Republican? Obviously, Donald Trump has dramatically changed that party. The question is, in the tug-of-war, those remaining who want to pull it back, how strong are they? So we watch Nikki Haley in Johnson County tonight, and we come back out. Let's come back to the live results here tonight. But, one county, 2 counties now. And again, this is where Kate Baldwin is. Jake, I'm going to get back to you, but this is Story County, college town. Kate was just there. Again, this should be Nikki Haley country if she is relatively strong coming out of Iowa. We'll know that when we get more votes, how to define that relatively. But this is filling in. If this continues, if she keeps those, okay. But you see that. It's overwhelming.
Sarah Seidner is over here in Cedar Rapids. Let's check in with Sarah right now. Sarah, what are you seeing where you are?
The counting is happening right now. The GOP chair of Lynn County is almost done with the count, and so I'm going to let you, they're checking in every time he looks at one of the ballots and pulls one out. So let's listen in a little bit.
06, Ramaswamy. 03, DeSantis. 03, DeSantis. 03, DeSantis. 07, Donald Trump. 07, Donald Trump. 03, DeSantis. 07, Donald Trump. 07, Donald Trump.
Okay, so what you're hearing, I just want to give you some sense of where we are right now here. 52% Donald Trump so far, 26% DeSantis so far, Ramaswamy 18%, and 3.7% Haley. Right now, DeSantis is a huge number 2. Let's listen into the last few ballots that he has.
04, Nikki Haley. 04, Nikki Haley. 07, Donald Trump. 03, DeSantis. 07, Donald Trump. 07, Donald Trump. 07, Donald Trump. 03, DeSantis. 07, Donald Trump. Okay, are we still in sync? Hopefully.
Yeah. Number 3 is 9. Number 4 is 3. Number 6, 6. Yes. And 21%.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Cool. Okay. 07, Donald Trump. 03, DeSantis. 06, Ramaswamy.
John King,
03,
interpret what's going on here. 03, 07, those are precincts? Those are individual precincts?
That's what we assume they are. Precincts within some of these counties, you come to a big site, different precincts break off into different rooms, they do their voting, and obviously all the ballots have been put in a bag, and you have the precinct captain counting the votes, and you see representatives at the table keeping count. Important to note, especially after listening to those disappointing entrance polls early on, people from each of the campaigns are there to watch this. right, to watch the count, to make sure it's done right. If anybody sees anything, they ask a question. You do it politely. You recount if you have to. That's the way democracy is supposed to work.
And there are representatives from each campaign at the tables.
Right at the table, so that everybody's watching this transparently, as obviously the reporters are allowed to watch too. This is transparent democracy at work. One of the reasons you can get so frustrated at the distrust out there is that these are honest, hardworking Americans who are for different candidates, who are sitting there counting the votes tonight. Whether they're for their candidate or somebody else's candidate, they're doing the right, and they're writing it down. And then they're all going to look at each other and say, we good? And they're going to report the results. I do the look at themselves and say good part, because we're showing you this. It's the value of our reporters on the ground in these valuable places, is that we see this here. If you pull up this county, this is Lynn County, Cedar Rapids right here. We don't have those votes yet, because the process is they count them at the site. They all look around, double check, triple check, make sure we're good. Then they report them to the Republican Party of Iowa, and then the party releases them. And then, only then, when they're official results, do we see them here. It's the way the process is supposed to work. So having our great reporters on the ground and this access is almost a preview of what's to come later here as we count the votes in the map and in the wall. But significant, again, as we listen here, and it has to be certified, but as we listen to the count and Sarah's reporting about Trump running strong here, again, this is Lynn County, right here. This is Lynn County. If you go back in time, this was a Ted Cruz County in 2016 where Donald Trump came in third with 20% of the vote. One of our questions tonight, we projected Donald Trump the winner. The question is, how strong is he in his comeback bid? How many of the Republicans who were not with him at the beginning, he was president for 4 years, but how many of the Republicans who were not with him at the beginning are with him now? And if you see him winning a place, we'll see what it comes out to when we get there, but if he's winning or running strong in a place like this, then that is a sign that the Donald Trump taking this first step, which he believes will be an inevitable path to renomination, has remarkable resilience and maybe some surprising new strength.
Yeah, and it's worth reminding people that in 2016, when Ted Cruz won Iowa, Donald Trump also falsely said that that state was stolen from him during the Iowa caucuses. This is what he does. It wasn't true then. It's not true now. We're getting deeper into the Iowa caucuses, tracking the margin of Donald Trump's projected victory, which seems overwhelming. And the still undecided fight for second place. We're standing by for more votes after this break. And we have another key race alert for you now. Let's check in with the actual votes coming in from the Iowa caucuses. It's only 1% of the estimated vote that's come in, but Donald Trump with a commanding lead, 57.4% of the vote. In second place, Nikki Haley, 18.5% of the vote. Ron DeSantis in third, 15.7% of the vote. Pulling up the rear, Vivek Ramaswamy with 7.7% of the vote, and Asa Hutchinson has one vote, which is still 0% of the vote when you look at the aggregate. Brian Todd is in Council Bluffs. Brian, tell us what you're seeing there.
All right, Jake, here in Council Bluffs, the votes have been put into the popcorn buckets. They've got them out now, and they're starting to count. So I'm going to let them do it, and you'll hear it live.
Ramaswamy. Trump. Haley. Haley. Trump. 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 DeSantis. Trump. 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 DeSantis.
And our viewers can see the tabulation on the left side of the screen as we tabulate with them.
Trump. DeSantis. Oops, sorry. DeSantis. Haley. DeSantis. DeSantis. Trump. Haley. Trump. 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 Sorry. DeSantis. DeSantis. Trump. Trump. Haley. Trump.
All right, you're watching the vote count right now in Council Bluffs, Iowa. So, John, you hear, obviously, we had a Vivek Ramaswamy vote, several Nikki Haley votes that they're pulling out of those popcorn containers and reading them off as we watch democracy in action. But tell us more about the specific location and what we're hearing means.
It's old school, but it's just fascinating to watch. I could watch all night. It's good citizens counting votes and different people for different candidates, counting them honestly as we go through it. So we're watching. You see, as Brian Todd noted, you see on the screen right there, that's the count from this particular count you're hearing right now live on television. It is not yet reflected. This is where he is. He's in Potawatomi County. Potawatomi County, southwestern Iowa. Nebraska is just to the left of you there. This is conservative country. Trump won this in 2016. Trump won it overwhelmingly in both general elections in 2016 and 2020. So this is conservative country. So this is where we were before these votes were coming in live. We had these votes from here beforehand. The very first votes counted in the county had Trump ahead with 65%. So you're watching here this particular precinct. If you watch the left side of your screen there, Trump's at 43. We're not done with the count yet, but as the count comes through, he's a little lower than that here. That's part of the challenge tonight. Donald Trump is going to win Iowa tonight. The question is, does he stay above 50%? How does he perform in places where he was strong in 2016? How does he perform in places he was strong in general elections as well? Are there any doubts about Donald Trump? That's what we're looking for. Or is it quite the contrary, and there's a lot of confidence and excitement about Donald Trump in the places he needs to win in November to have a chance to be reelected as president? So you're watching these votes come in here. Again, this is Potawatomi County here in the southwest part of the state. I want to just pull out statewide so you can see where we are. As you watch the map fill in right now, we know Donald Trump's going to win. We know that from our projection, which is based on the entrance poll, which is based on key precincts, based on what we're seeing and hearing on the ground. The question is the margin, right? At the moment, he's at 54%. Governor DeSantis at 19%. Nikki Haley at 19% if you round that up. So now, right now, early in the count, very early in the count, look at all the gray. A lot of the 99 counties have reported nothing. It's a battle for second place, and right now it is quite a spirited battle for second place. If it stays this way, Donald Trump wins twice. He would win by winning with a big margin like that, especially if he stays over 50%, and he would win that there's no clear alternative below him. But I'm saying that at 9 o'clock in the east, we have a long way to go in this count. So what else are we seeing in the map? Two counties at the moment where Nikki Haley is leading. One is Johnson County, Iowa City, a more moderate county in the eastern part of the state. College area there as well. Another college area here, Story County, Des Moines, north of Des Moines there, where Haley is leading at the moment. But look, 25, 13, 10. This is a tiny, tiny smattering of votes. That's one precinct probably. And we have our first DeSantis County of the night up here, Sioux County, in the northwest county of the state. Again, northwest Iowa, South Dakota, and Nebraska. Think that. You're rural, you're prairie, you're out this way here. DeSantis ahead early, though, 127 to 104 to 74. So you're watching the map fill in, and it's now since we know Trump is going to win, the big question is by how much and where. We know he'll be strong in these rural counties here. The question is in these places here, this is where Sarah's been throughout tonight in Lynn County, very early in the count. If Trump keeps this Trump red, that's a big win for Donald Trump. This is not a place where he was strong in 2016, and it's a place where in both general elections, he did not perform well. If suburban Republicans are coming back to Donald Trump, that would be a plus coming out of Iowa. But as we watch this, Aaron, remember the most important thing? We know Donald Trump's going to win. The second most important thing is a lot of gray on this map. So we don't know by how much, and we don't know what's going to happen beneath him. And what happens beneath him, if there's no consolidation and DeSantis and Haley are kind of congested together, that leaves it pretty murky as Donald Trump goes on to a state where he has done well in the past, New Hampshire, and then if we get a consolidation, we know a little more. Let's listen.
Trump. DeSantis. Trump. Trump. Haley. Trump. 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 A pen. Trump. 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 DeSantis. Haley. Trump.
That's it.
Now, if
you've been keeping track, this is not an official tally because we have to make sure that the number of people registered equals, or the number of ballots is not great, is equal to or less than the number of people here. So, hold on.
What you just heard there was important, especially at a time when so many people have been told to doubt the integrity of elections, right? There you have, I don't know her name, that's a wonderful Republican official out in Potawatomi County saying, we're going to count the votes. You just heard us do it live. But that's not official because now we're going to double check the count. This is what happens everywhere, in Democratic precincts, in Republican precincts, in evenly drawn precincts, all across America on election nights, whether they're using a hand ballot like this and counting it right before your very eyes, doing the arithmetic we all learned in grammar school, or whether they're using machines, but they can also double check the machines as well. There are ways to do this. This, to me, as someone who's done this for 40 years, forgive me for editorializing, is the saddest part of our democracy, that people doubt this. You're watching it tonight. Republicans, this is a Republican process you're watching tonight. These are honest, hardworking Americans counting votes, doing it right. There's every reason to believe, because it has always been so, that this will continue all the way through the process. I love watching this because it's working the way it's supposed to work, because it works.
And John, you know, when we look at this, you watch those popcorn containers. You know, when they're picking every vote out of it, and then when he's done, you know, with a flourish, putting them face down, we're done. And then they go back and recount. It is somehow that something that everybody can absolutely relate to, right? And one of the other ones where we were watching the counting, they had a Ziploc bag. By the way, I'll note a Ziploc bag that had been used many times. That these are just regular people doing their job. Let's go to Ames, right in the dead center of the state. Kate Baldwin, you've had so many interesting conversations with voters. What's happening there right now?
So what we just witnessed, we've gone out of the gymnasium where two of the precincts in Ames, they were caucusing, and where they came out here to these two tables. They took, they were in grocery store paper bags is where they collected the ballots, these color index cards. They brought them out here, laid them all out, divided them by name, and then counted them twice. Two precincts are in this gymnasium, Ames precinct 23. Ron DeSantis got 29 votes and brought in 38.7% of this precinct. Nikki Haley was next with 22 votes, 29.3% of this precinct. And then Donald Trump, he received 20 votes, which was 26.7% of this precinct. So this is just one of the 24 precincts in Ames, in just Ames, and how this process worked. They brought out those color index cards, Aaron. They counted them all out, counted them twice. 4 or 5 volunteers just from the bleachers inside. They were asked to come help with the counting, just as John was talking about. Regular folks volunteering all came out here, counted them up. You see some of them kind of looking over. They were gathered looking over some of the final counts. There's some volunteering they're actually signing up for. And back inside the gymnasium, they're getting back to some more local county party business. And that's how it's gone down here. It seems that it's gone pretty flawlessly. They counted it twice, and now that's how this caucus works here in Ames. Aaron.
All right. Kate, John, can you put some context around the numbers Kate's reporting, talking about, again, 2 precincts in Ames, but DeSantis coming out on top there, Haley, and then Trump from where she's standing?
Right. So the value of having these great reporters in the key areas around the state is they're actually ahead of this count, right? So that count, anything counted there, right there before her eyes, again, as Kate notes, will be double-checked and triple-checked on the scene, and then reported to the Iowa Republican Party, and then it gets released as official and fed. So our reporters on the scene of these key precincts are ahead of the math, if you will, of what we're going to see here. But let's just come out to the statewide map first, just to check in again. Not much has changed. The former president is well ahead as a contested ballot for second place. Again, we're very, very early in the count, but look how close this is at the moment, 599 votes to 580 votes. That also tells you we got a long way to go if it's 599 votes to 580 votes. We got thousands more votes to count. But you're looking at the map fill in. If you're Donald Trump, that's your red. You're more than happy at the moment. Your goal now at Donald Trump is to stay above 50%. That's your big goal. You're going to win the state. You want to stay above 50% for the message that gives you coming out of it. So where Kate was, that was the context you asked. Story County is, again, it's the 7th largest of the 99 counties. It's about, where are we, 3% of the population. Smaller population of Republicans. This is one of the more Democratic counties in Iowa. But you have Ames here, College Town, if you pull out to look where we are here, this is where you've had the biggest population growth. One of my questions coming into this is since 2016, when Donald Trump first took over, his hostile takeover, now friendly Republican Party, 60,000 people have moved here to Metro Des Moines since then. Now, they're not all Republicans, they're not even all voters, but one of my questions is what's new this cycle? And does that impact things? And so you're looking for where the new voters are and whether they make a difference if they turn out. And so far, in the early results, we've got a long way to go, but if Donald Trump right now is well ahead, it's 10 votes, 2 votes, 1 vote, so it almost doesn't count. It's the first precinct said. But in Polk County, Donald Trump running ahead, and in Story County, Donald Trump down low. This is interesting if it stays like this and he stays way down here. But that's what you're looking for, Aaron. We don't have the answers yet. These are the seeds of the clues, but where Kate is one of the key places of even if Donald Trump wins Iowa tonight, by how much and how strong is he heading on to other states? We'll learn that as we get more votes later.
All right, John, and now it's a question all about margin and what really is a win for Trump. Kristen Holmes is at Trump headquarters. And Kristen, that's got to be the conversation they're having right now, as they were, I'm sure, excited to hear such an early call. But now it's about the real numbers and the votes coming in.
Yeah, that's right, Aaron. That's actually what former President Trump is waiting for right now, to actually see some of those numbers coming in. We know he is here at this event location, but I am told he is not likely to come out and speak right away because they are watching to see those numbers come in, to see what the margin is. As we had heard from multiple campaign advisors, they had really been tempering expectations, saying that they didn't believe the margins were quite as big as we saw in those public polls, nothing near 30. However, they are feeling more confident. And I will tell you that speaking to his advisors tonight, many of them say they feel vindicated. They had a robust ground game on the ground in Iowa. They analyzed data. They brought out new caucus goers in droves, and now they are feeling like they are reaping the benefits of what they put out there for the last year. This was much more sophisticated than what we saw in 2016. And one thing I will tell you is that Donald Trump has been fixated on the fact that he didn't win in 2016 for quite some time. It still irritated him, and because he is superstitious, he was continually asking his team, are these poll numbers right? Am I going to take it by this much? Now he is very happy, obviously, to see these numbers. But as you noted, it's all about the margins. How big is that win going to be? They want a definitive win to not only set the tone, but to stop any momentum from their rivals, particularly Nikki Haley, going into New Hampshire. And the other thing I will note is I actually heard from one advisor who said that they would hope that DeSantis actually comes in second, so that it would also stunt Haley going into New Hampshire, because they are seeing her rise in that state, as we have reported, already spending millions to hit her there.
All right, Kristen, thank you very much. Let's go to Clive, Iowa now, where Dana Bash is. Dan, of course, earlier in the night, Donald Trump was where you were, coming out to address people. And it was very soon after that he was pronounced the winner. Interesting, though, he's waiting to see the margins himself for any sort of a formal victory speech.
Yeah, which is understandable given what we're seeing here with our own eyes and hearing with our own ears, which is that these people, I mean, there are hundreds of people here in Clive, Iowa. They're still listening to the speeches. We just heard a speech wrap up from Chip Roy, the congressman from Texas who has endorsed Ron DeSantis, speaking on behalf of Ron DeSantis. We've seen some pretty heavy hitters here. You talked about Donald Trump. Nikki Haley was here. We saw Vivek Ramaswamy, Asa Hutchinson. A lot of the candidates came here in person to make their case. And just to hear them, and I mean, it's a lot of it's their stump speech. But to be a part of this process and to witness the candidates make their case minutes before the people actually cast their votes.
I was going to say, Dana, how smart are you that you put us all here in Clive, and that we ended up being in the best seat in the House for the Iowa caucuses. Everybody except DeSantis came here tonight, and it's been a pretty good show, and they haven't even started to vote yet.
Yeah. So, Dana, one thing I wanted to kind of bring up, I've been talking to sources all night, and a very conservative source of mine raises something that we saw in our entrance polls from earlier tonight. And this was the number around whether or not they would consider Trump to be disqualified for office if he's convicted, if he's a convicted felon. And 32% of caucus goers said that he would be disqualified. Obviously, initially the reaction is, oh, that means 60 plus say he's not. This person, who I think would gladly see Donald Trump be president, says that 32% says more about the general election and the possibility that Trump would be an immediate loser. If they lose that many, if they lose a third of Republicans, if he is convicted, that makes it almost impossible. So it kind of turns it a little bit on its head. I thought it was a very interesting point. I also think it potentially presages an incredibly, even darker than we've already seen, general election campaign. Because what would Trump have to do to convince those people?
Well, you know, I heard Scott Jennings, I believe, earlier making a similar point, because you know where he stands. He's worried about Donald Trump, as are others. Which is probably why we just heard Chip Roy behind us, again, Republican congressman, super conservative. He's a supporter of Ron DeSantis, making the argument not for Donald, or not against Donald Trump because of for those reasons. Those are not the people that people like Ron DeSantis are appealing to. He was making the argument from the other side. Don't support Donald Trump because he didn't do some of the things he promised to do. He didn't put a wall up on the border. He didn't keep the promises, the conservative promises, many of them, that he promised everybody he would do.
I just want to follow up, though, on what you were saying, Casey, in this question of is the glass 2/3 full or 1/3 empty on the issue of Republicans not willing to support. You see somebody like Chris Sununu, the governor of New Hampshire, who is a devout Haley supporter and a fierce Trump critic, also saying, if he's the nominee, I'll endorse him and I'll back him and support him. I mean, you know, you do not get a sense that there are a lot of people out there in the Republican Party who aren't going to rally around the flag and support Donald Trump, whatever the misgivings and legitimate misgivings they have about him and his character and his conduct, if he's the nominee of the party.
Sure, but I mean, I do think, though, that at the end of the day, it's going to be, the Trump campaign is going to see it's an issue for them, and they're going to have to go even harder into these dark places to convince people that the system is rigged. He's going to have to attack the institutions even more than he already has.
Anderson, I'm going to toss it back to you as we wait for the actual voting to start at this very large caucus site where we are.
Dana, thanks very much. I want to check in with David Chalian, who's got some more numbers. David, what are you seeing?
Anderson, we asked folks sort of the candidate qualities they were looking for in tonight's choice as they were making their decision. What quality mattered most? Overall, 43% of Iowa Republican caucus goers tonight say they were looking for a candidate who shares my values. 31% said fights for people like me was their most important candidate quality. Way down on the list was this electability argument. Only 12% said they were looking for a candidate, most of all, that could defeat Joe Biden. And again, only a 12% slice said they were looking for the candidate who has the right temperament. But now I want to show you sort of inside each candidate, major candidate's coalition. So this is among Trump voters. Among Trump voters, what quality mattered most? For a slim majority, 51%, they were looking for somebody who fights for people like me. Another third or so, 36%, say looking for someone who shares my values. They don't care about electability, and the Trump supporters certainly don't care about having the right temperament. Haley voters, this is her coalition. Here, having the right temperament was the top candidate quality. For her supporters, 37% said it was the most important. 31% shares my values. Here, electability, a key argument from Nikki Haley, shows up here with 23%, and only 5% of her supporters said they were looking for somebody who fights for people like me. DeSantis' coalition, overwhelmingly, 61% said they came to the caucuses looking for somebody who shares their values. Nothing else of these qualities, fighting for somebody like me, defeating Biden, or having the right temperament, really weighed on the minds of DeSantis voters. They were looking for somebody they identified with on a value-based system. Anderson?
David Chalian, really interesting back here with the panel. It's so interesting how the former president has convinced a huge number of people in the party that he is fighting for them. I mean, as much as he talks about his own legal fights, and many commentators say that's all he really talks about, people believe he is fighting for them.
Well, he talks about persecution, right? And so it's his persecution, and also, let's say in the case of evangelicals, saying that people who have religious faith are inherently persecuted by the broader culture. And I think that is a way of creating an identification, because then it means all this huge array of institutions that you no longer trust, they're not just against me, they're against you. And we've talked a lot about how he's been able to make that argument stick.
It's just I think it's just his combative nature overall in general, right, Anderson? I mean, it's his personality. It's pugnacious. It's combative, everything about the guy. So it's not necessarily, I think, a one issue kind of I think that's his personality is, I'm a fighter. I'm going to go to Washington. I'm going to tear the place down again and again.
His central thesis from the moment he came down that escalator was that there is a deep state, there is an establishment that disrespects you, and I'm your avenging avatar, and now it is more important to him because his narrative fits all of these indictments into that. The same people who disrespect you, who are trying to stop me from being your voice, so it is really central to his political.
It obviously works pretty well.
Well, and part of why we are here, though, is because the top tier of candidates, Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis, did not go after him on his greatest vulnerabilities, his indictments, his unfitness, January 6th. And I understand the political strategy was that's radioactive in a primary, but that comes down to voter education and explaining why he's unfit. And Ron DeSantis did something interesting on the stump today. He made the statement of basically so many of Trump's former officials won't even support him. But he didn't answer the why of that. The reason people like me won't support him is because we know him and we saw that he's dangerous. That's the story they had to tell if they were going to have some kind of massive overtaking moment of Donald Trump.
But the reason they didn't go after him on those issues is because fundamentally the Republicans don't agree that
but that's where voter persuasion would come in.
They don't agree that he is the cause of this. They agree that he is the victim of it. And when you look at the entrance polls David just put up, that electability had fallen so far down. 4% also tells me that the Republican voters don't
view. They lose with them.
Well, they don't view any of those things as inherently wrong. And I think it also speaks to the assumption that Republicans began to make as the primary wore on that any of these people are going to beat Joe Biden. And early on, there was concern that Trump couldn't beat him. Now, I don't think Republicans really are worried about that. They see all these polls with him winning, so they're going to go with the person that they think was the victim of all this stuff, not the strategic vote.
But also remember, this is a Republican primary audience, right? This is not a general election message, right? Like this, we know this is not a message. This, what Republican caucus goers may say about, Donald Trump is fighting for me because he's taking on the system, he's taking on the criminal justice system. We know in a general election, that's not an appealing argument for moderate voters, for suburban voters, for swing voters who are going to be a huge decider in this election. So this is, it is obviously, it's an interesting discussion to have tonight. But as we're thinking about Donald Trump moving into the general election, this is a vulnerability for him. And we shouldn't lose sight of the fact that this is a vulnerability for him.
I mean, just to your point, if this were a good winning argument, I suspect Chris Christie would still be with us.
But I still think, and I hear you on that, but I think that what's the role of leaders? Leaders should speak the truth to the public, to the audience, and I think that there was an opportunity after the indictments came down to talk about, and you don't have to agree. Like, most Republicans think Alvin Bragg's case is totally politicized. Stealing classified documents and keeping them in your country club, I think anyone should be able to communicate why that's dangerous, why we went after Hillary Clinton for it, and why it's wrong when Donald Trump does it. If you avoid that and you basically make it, I'm less drama, there's just not enough of a juxtaposition.
Well, you're not. I mean, in our own polling, about a third of the Republicans said a conviction would make him unfit. So there's obviously an audience for that. I just wonder, though, if you looked at that same group, if they would say, well, but also Joe Biden is unfit, so I'm going to end up choosing between two people who are unfit. I might as well choose the one that fights for me.
No,
and
I
represents
think
my
this
values.
next election, in many ways, is going to be an exercise in risk assessment. I think people are going to look at Trump's flaws. They're going to look at what their concerns are about Biden. But I think you're quite right. It's going to be a different battlefield than I mean.
And looking at
the
numbers,
he's playing all home games right now.
Looking at the numbers tonight, I think it was 9% of that entrance poll group consider themselves moderates even. So I think the data does support something about what you're saying, which is those people who you're talking about, Alyssa, like they didn't get out in the snow or they weren't interested or they've given up. And I actually am going to be very curious about what the word independence means out of this polls. Are these people who are basically MAGA Republicans who see themselves outside of the system rather than what we would think of as a general election independent?
Sorry, we should note this isn't over. There is a chance. I mean, if Nikki Haley comes in above 20% and goes in with some sort of momentum into New Hampshire, we shouldn't declare it over at this point, but he's clearly the
I was just going to say, if anybody at this table thinks that Donald Trump's going to change his temperament or message between now and the general election, I got a bridge to sell downtown here.
It has proven to be a big night for Donald Trump in Iowa. We are still awaiting the final vote count, the outcome of the close Haley-DeSantis battle for second place. Stay with us for more live coverage of the Iowa caucuses next.
Welcome back. I have another key race alert for you. Let's check in on the voting board. We have 6% of the estimated vote in from Iowa. Donald Trump still far and away the leader with 49.5% of the vote. Ron DeSantis in second place with 22.4% of the vote. Nikki Haley in third, 20.6% of the vote. DeSantis and Haley have been hopscotching over each other, leapfrogging over each other, I should say, for second place all night as the votes come in. In the shallow end of the pool, Vivek Ramaswamy, 7.1% of the vote. Asa Hutchinson, 0.2% of the vote. Let's go to the magic wall, find out where some of these votes are coming in from. John King, this is, I know it excites you, it excites me, it excites David Chalian. That's why we do this job. The actual voters are speaking. Forget the pundits, forget the polls. This is what the people of Iowa want.
The first votes of the 2024 cycle. We have a long way to go to both nominations and then on to November, but it's great. It is great, and it's exciting to see votes come in and to count them. If you look, that's Donald Trump's red, and 99 counties. We still have a long way to go. The gray ones mean no votes yet, so a long way to go in the count. We know Donald Trump's going to win Iowa tonight, so the big question is by how much and what happens beneath him. Right? If it ends up like this, Trump right at 50. He'd like to be above 50, but that's right. If you round it, it's right. If it ends up with Trump at 50 or more, and this split down here, then essentially Donald Trump wins twice because he wins the race and his opposition is fractured and way behind him. But we don't know if that's how we're going to end up. We know that's where we are now, which is what makes the next several hours so important for the future of this Republican race. How strong is he, and how strong are they? Meaning they being those beneath him who want to challenge him. We know Nikki Haley is relatively strong in New Hampshire. Can she get a little bit of a boost out of Iowa? What would that be? So we watch as the map fills in. And again, at the moment, this is early. It's very, very early. So 2% of the estimated vote in from Lynn County. If this stays Donald Trump red, then Donald Trump is having a very strong night. He's winning in places that he didn't win in 2016 and where he had weakness in both 2020 and in 2024. These are just Republicans. Democrats out there are going to grumble. Why are you giving him strength in a Republican primary? He's a Republican. But that's the beginning. Right? It's the beginning. It's a long process to November. The first thing he has to do is prove, as Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis say, we need to move on. We need a new nominee. He can't win in November. The first thing you have to prove as a candidate is that you have your party consolidated. Then you have a few months from now to November to try to work on your other weaknesses. The first test for Donald Trump is how much is he in control of the Republican Party. This is a very conservative state. It's not representative of all of America, but that would be a good start. Question is that where we end as we start to count votes? Where are we? 929 in the East. So there are a lot of places where they're still voting. The larger caucus sites, the candidates spoke late. They're still counting votes. We got a long way to go. And so what are we looking at? Number one, I just want to see if any more votes no. So we saw this early on. Boris Sanchez is in Polk County. We saw a precinct where Trump was doing pretty well. Again, that would be good news for Donald Trump. If you're doing well in Des Moines and the suburbs around it, that's a sign of strength in a place where Nikki Haley or Ron DeSantis are looking to break out.
Those are more college-educated, more moderate Republicans.
Right. You make a great point there. So let's look at this. Let's just look at the state, right? The dividing line in American politics right now is education. Period. People with a college degree in general elections are more likely to vote Democratic. People with a non-college degree are not only more likely to be Republican, but within the Republican Party, they're more likely to be Trump voters. If Donald Trump can improve his standing throughout the primary season, not just tonight in Iowa, if he does tonight in Iowa, that will be interesting. The question is, can he keep doing it, right? Is it a one-off, or can he keep doing it?
Because this has been a group of relative weakness for Trump.
That is why Donald Trump loses the suburbs. And if you lose the suburbs, you lose in November. Period. That's how it works. But if he can keep these voters and start to rebuild with these voters, he's already a force to be reckoned with. If the election were tomorrow, Biden-Trump, Trump would probably win, most likely win. All the data tells you that. Now, we're not in November. We're not in November, and Biden has yet to address this and get at it and everything else. But this is Trump's base, right? So this is Iowa, right? This is statewide. You see the no college degree far outpaces, nearly 58% far outpaces college graduates, right? And so Donald Trump wins these voters. This is his soft spot. So you just mentioned Polk County. Let's just go to Polk County. Let me bring this back out here. Hold on, let me try this again. Give me a little bit of grief tonight, but let's bring this over here, put this up here, and then we'll bring this out and see what happens. All right.
There you go.
So now it switches to Polk County. Just need a little help, right? So look at this. It's even, more even, right? Statewide, more no college degrees. In this urban, suburban areas, you have more college graduates. If Donald Trump is running strong in a place where the education line tells you traditionally he should be weak, that's a sign of a guy who is at least slowly, or at least in one place, addressing some of his weaknesses. Again, it's one night, it's one thing, but this is what we're going to watch as the night goes on. I say that, and I just want to flip off and come back here. Let's come back out. Let's just turn it off. Maybe it'll help me this way. See you later. And you come back to, again, it's Polk County, 556 votes, very, very early. So I'm saying things based on what I'm looking at now. Just want to tell everybody at home, we have hours to go.
Right.
And so sometimes you get a snapshot of one or two precincts and you think, wow, and then we've been through this before. A couple hours later, you're like, never mind. So we have a long way to go in counting the votes. But if you're in a campaign headquarters, you're doing what we're doing. Where are we now? You're making phone calls about what the weaknesses are.
What votes are outstanding?
Yeah, if you're in the Trump campaign headquarters, you're happy. You're back above 50 now. We just got a few more votes there. This is the muddle at the moment. Donald Trump benefits from a muddle. Just like he did in 2016, he would again in 2024 if the opposition is fractured and behind him. He came out of Iowa, remember, in second place. But then he went to New Hampshire, just won. Went on to Nevada, South Carolina, just won. But it was enough. Winner-take-all rules in the Republican Party. So you might say, aha, he's only at 50%. Once you get out of Iowa, you get to a lot of these later states with the closed primaries, he's going to get all or most of the delegates. If you care, if you want to look over your shoulder right now, ultimately, if it's a contested nomination, it's about this, right? It's about this. Now, where we are right now, Donald Trump would get 16, Haley 4, DeSantis 4. There's 40 delegates, so we're not anywhere to go there. But I show this just because this is what, if we have a contested Republican primary, Jake, we're going to spend a lot of time over the next month or two on this. If we don't have a contested Republican primary and Donald Trump just runs up those numbers, then it won't matter. So that is the challenge. Are we talking about delegate rules 6, 7 weeks from now? If we are, Donald Trump has a challenge on his hand. If we're not, it's a blowout.
And just to give people some sense of historical context of this, for a non-incumbent president in the modern era, they've been holding caucuses in Iowa since literally the 1840s, but the modern era of caucuses, where Iowa goes first, started in the 1970s. The best performance of a non-incumbent president was George W. Bush in 2000, and he got 41%.
41%.
41%. So Donald Trump is beating that. Well, that's the general election.
Yeah, the Republican primary's not in here. Sorry, I didn't check to see how many old ones we had in here.
I'm very demanding.
Yeah, but that's
I know.
Good. No, it's good. I just want to see if we could actually show the numbers.
But this number, even if it's not 50%, it's still historically unprecedented.
Yes, and so that, again, there are going to be a lot of arguments in the Republican Party, and those for Trump and against Trump, and in political debate circles, the punditry circles out there, of, what's the line of strength right there?
Right.
The Trump campaign will tell you that's a historic win, right? If that's where it ends up, above the 41%, and then other people say, oh, no, he's an incumbent president. Right. At least Republican voters think he's an incumbent president.
Right.
So these debates will continue, as they have since he came down that escalator in 2015, in the sense of what is it going to take? Where's the trapdoor for Donald Trump? Trump critics have been having this conversation forever, trying to find the trap door. And every time, they have it, aha, he's under 50, or aha, this.
Or can you add up DeSantis and Haley and it adds up to more than Trump, which is not the case right now.
If he's below 50, that'll be the conversation that he's essentially the incumbent president, or he's by far the most formidable force in the Republican Party. All the House Republican leadership is for him. Most of the other establishment, the new establishment, is for him. He used to be the anti-establishment guy. The new Republican establishment is for him. That'll be the argument. He's above 50. But, okay, again, to game this out, because it's early in the night, when we have a lot of votes, we'll know the answers to some of these questions. To game that out, he's below 50, meaning mathematically somebody could beat him. But do DeSantis, Haley, Ramaswamy, Hutchinson all go into a room and say, which one of us? Unlikely.
Yeah, although that did happen in 2020 with the Democrats against Bernie Sanders, trying to defeat Bernie Sanders. I'm not comparing Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders. Everybody calm down. Aaron Burnett?
Jake, Abby, we were talking about this earlier as we were all talking about these results coming in. If it is a very close race for second, and that's how it ends up, that you have Haley and DeSantis very close, some conventional wisdom might be like, okay, great, well, then they both have a ticket, they both move on. But you were raising the question about whether that's really the case when you look at the time and the money DeSantis has spent in Iowa.
I mean, let's be real. DeSantis planted himself in Iowa. He's got all the big endorsements, the governor of the state, the biggest evangelical leader in the state. He's spent tens of millions of dollars here in Iowa. An almost tied second place would not be the victory that his campaign is looking for. A couple of days ago, I spoke with a top fundraiser for DeSantis and supporter for him in the state, who was pretty plain. It needs to be a strong second. Otherwise, a lot of people like him, people who are raising money for DeSantis, who are big supporters, who are flexible at the end of the day, who could go to Trump or not go to Trump, they will be looking to see what's next. So it's not about the conversation we're having at this table. For a candidate like DeSantis especially, it's about what are his donors going to do? What are those, a lot of DeSantis' supporters, the actual voters, these are people who don't mind Trump all that much. There's a lot of overlap between those voters. DeSantis says it himself. What do they do if they feel like all of the effort put into this state was for essentially a tied race with the next candidate who did not spend as much time here?
And as we wait for those results, Caitlin, of course, he's signaled very clearly that he's in it, right? He's got the town hall with Wolf tomorrow night. He's going to South Carolina tomorrow morning, clearly not sleeping tonight. He's trying to make it very clear he's not going anywhere.
Yeah, well, and we'll let Governor DeSantis obviously define that for himself, but I think all politicians say that they're in the race until they're not. I mean, Chris Christie was telling us just 2 weeks ago that he was taking this race all the way to the Republican convention, and then, of course, we saw him drop out last Wednesday. I think right now what's happening in DeSantis and Haley worlds that we're hearing from is a bit of surprise at how quickly the race was called for Donald Trump, some anger from them over it. But really, they're staying pretty tight-lipped right now as we're waiting to see what it's going to look like, who is going to be in that second place position, and what it means for the shape of this race. I think overall, though, what we're seeing tonight and what they're also recognizing privately, at least some of them to me, is that Donald Trump's grasp on the Republican Party is as firm as it's ever been, maybe potentially more so than it has been previously. And so that is the question of what this looks like. And when you look at the 91 criminal counts, all the civil suits, including the one that he's facing tomorrow, I mean, also look at what Chris Sununu of New Hampshire is saying, and Kem Reynolds, the two governors here in these two first states, have both said that they would still vote for Donald Trump if he's the nominee. Chris Sununu saying even if he's a convicted felon. And so it does speak to the length of what the resistance to Donald Trump is.
Hey, look, DeSantis may want to compete in New Hampshire, but he really has not put in the kind of investment that other campaigns have. In fact, there's been zero pro-DeSantis dollars spent in January in New Hampshire TV ads compared to $8 million for Haley's groups, $8 million for Trump. Shows you how they're thinking about it. And Trump is trying to make it seem like it's a foregone conclusion that he is on the march to the nomination. I'm told that he has been pressing members of Congress in particular to get behind him. One person that I'm told that he is in talks with right now to try to get an endorsement is Senator Tim Scott, the former presidential candidate, someone who's a South Carolina senator, someone who's appointed by Nikki Haley to his seat. He's trying to get him to endorse him potentially before the South Carolina primary in an effort to show a blow of sorts to Nikki Haley if it does come to that. I'm told it's not a done deal yet, but that just shows you the maneuvering behind the scenes as Trump tries to make it clear that he's a nomination and wants the party to fall in line.
Wow, that would be obviously a significant thing if that happens. All right, let's go to Dana back in Clive. And Dana, you have been in an incredibly crowded room. You heard all the speeches, and now they're counting?
It's happening. Everybody voted, and the fine people here who are doing their civic duties went around the entire area, which is thinning out a little bit, collected all the paper ballots in these bins right here. They've just finished sorting them, so now each of the bin is assigned to a candidate, and now they're starting to vote. So we can go around the other side. Come with me, John, and we're going to listen as the votes are happening. First, they're starting, I see here, with Vivek Ramaswamy. So let's listen.
Vivek, 11. Vivek, 12.
And you can see on Mona's pad here, She's doing it the old-fashioned way with hashtags, right, Mona?
We'll count them. Every vote counts.
And I should say that Mona, you can probably see here, is a supporter of Ron DeSantis. And we have a supporter of Vivek Ramaswamy. And you see down at the end there, Michelle is a supporter of Donald Trump. And they're all getting together to vote, to count these votes as one team.
22. 23. 24. 25. 26. 27. 28. 29. 30. 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, and 40.
Okay, so right now we have 40. Let's put them in before we do an official tablet. Let's put them in, and then if anybody wants a recount, we'll be able to do a recount. So we've completed Vivek. Okay, let's start with DeSantis, please. And what we're doing here is we're making sure that we're looking at the front of the ticket and also the back to make sure that it's in the correct precinct. Okay, go ahead.
DeSantis, 1. Oh. Need this. DeSantis 2, DeSantis 3, DeSantis 4, DeSantis 5, DeSantis 6, DeSantis 7, DeSantis 8, DeSantis 9, DeSantis 10, DeSantis 11, DeSantis 12, DeSantis 13, DeSantis 14, DeSantis 15, DeSantis 16, DeSantis 17, DeSantis 18, DeSantis 19, DeSantis 20, DeSantis 21, DeSantis 22, DeSantis 23, DeSantis 24, DeSantis 25, DeSantis 26, DeSantis 27, DeSantis 28, DeSantis 29, DeSantis 30, DeSantis, Clive 4.
Clive 4, okay, let's set that aside. Clive 4, we need a delivery.
I can run over, I'm a DeSantis.
Okay.
This doesn't have one.
Okay, so no.
That should not count. Should not count.
No, because they're all, okay, so we need to
come back.
Okay, we need,
Yes, hold
we need, set that aside. Set
The
that
next one I picked out doesn't have a
sticker on the back.
precinct.
Could be a mistake. Let's set it aside for right now.
All right, what were we, 25?
Yes.
20,
5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. DeSantis, 31.
31.
Yep.
DeSantis, 32. DeSantis, 33. DeSantis, 34. DeSantis, 35. DeSantis, 36. DeSantis, 37. DeSantis, 38. DeSantis, 39. DeSantis, 40. DeSantis, 41. DeSantis, 42. DeSantis, 43. DeSantis, 44. DeSantis, 45. DeSantis, 46. DeSantis, 47. DeSantis, 48. DeSantis, 49. DeSantis, 50. DeSantis, 51. DeSantis, 52.
We're going to go back to the voting in Clive, but right now let me bring you a key race alert, and let's look at the actual votes coming in. We have a lot more of the vote in now. 34% of the estimated vote in for the Iowa Republican caucuses. That's more than a third of it. And right now, Donald Trump is far and away in the lead with 52%. That's 22,815 votes. Ron DeSantis maintaining his second place position at 20.3%. Nikki Haley at third, 19.2%. Pulling out the rear, Vivek Ramaswamy, 7.7%. Asa Hutchinson, 0.2%. So Donald Trump maintaining his, at least as of right now, with about a third of the vote in, historically massive lead. John King, tell us more, and I do want to know where we are still waiting for votes from.
Well, as you can see, the gray counties mean no votes at all just yet. That's 30 left. 30. So,
and those are, generally speaking, going to be Trump counties.
Yeah, up here is a little bit more iffy, but yes, rural here, rural here. So 30 of the 99 counties, which means 69 of the counties have now reported at least some results. So that's progress. That's progress. And as you see, they're doing this by hand. It's hand ballots, paper ballots, and they count them out. But they're moving along. They're moving on quite efficiently, and you see all the campaigns they're counting. It's wonderful to watch. Where Dana Bash is, so I'm going to pull up Polk County here. This is Des Moines. Clive is unique. It's right out here. It's right out here on the border. She's in Polk County, but Clive also extends over into neighboring Dallas County. It's one of the fastest growing areas in Iowa. The Des Moines suburbs, if you've been there, 10 campaigns ago was my first campaign. To go to Des Moines and the suburbs now and to remember what they were like in 1987 and 1988, it is literally A and Z. And so that's where you have new voters. That's where you have suburban voters. That's where you have the higher college education, the insurance industry, finance industries. The Des Moines suburbs are just growing like gangbusters, younger people as well. So watching the votes there is very important. If you're going to say, this is Trump's party, all that red tells you this is Trump's state and this is Trump's party. The question is, where are the new people going? How are they for Trump? What's happening? So it's fascinating to watch a place like that. Earlier on, Nikki Haley was leading out here in Johnson County. Again, about 60% of the vote count, ways to go. She's close, but Trump has now pulled ahead in this county. Again, if Donald Trump is winning in a county over here in eastern Iowa, there's a big college in the middle of it right there, that's a sign of strength for Donald Trump. The one place where Nikki Haley remains ahead, but we're still very early in the vote count here. This has not changed in quite some time. This is where we were talking to Kate Baldwin earlier. Again, 7th of the 99 counties in terms of population. A Democratic county come November.
University area, Iowa State.
University, Iowa State right there. Again, you're looking at Des Moines, growing suburban area in the southern part of the county right here. Let's watch as it goes in. But as this fills in, Dubuque, right? Dubuque County here, Donald Trump with, again, a long way to go, but 48% of the vote in a place. If you're just looking back at the population centers, Donald Trump is winning. This is the one.
DeSantis, yeah.
Yeah, the one county for DeSantis right now is Sioux County, very conservative county. Again, right out here, South Dakota and Nebraska. If you go this way and over a little bit, or this way and down, South Dakota and then Nebraska down a little bit. Very conservative rural county. Again, 30% of the vote. Let's see where we go. But he's in a tug of war. This is what happened in 2016. This was Cruz and Trump in the rural areas, something like this. And Cruz won. Trump was second and went on to New Hampshire. This is what DeSantis needs to do everywhere. So you see it here, but you come out here, and it's mostly Trump. So let's just take one thing and take a peek here. Let's just take a peek. Where is DeSantis running second? So you see all the counties where we have votes? Mm-hmm. The ones that are still lit up is where DeSantis is running second. So Trump is winning. In most of the places Trump is winning, DeSantis is running second. So it's a version of Trump-Cruz 2016, except Trump's on top and by more. That's his hold on the party. Trump and Cruz were battling for the conservative vote, the evangelical vote, the rural vote, the farmer vote in 2016. Now it's Donald Trump's, and Ron DeSantis is trying to pull second place from that. So let me come back out. I hit the wrong button. Let's bring this back in here. I just want to close this and come back just to see in places where Nikki Haley is running second. Again, all that red is Donald Trump. Where is she running second? Some, fewer than DeSantis, but some. And if you notice, where Nikki Haley is running second, with some exceptions, like down here, tend to be around your city and suburban areas, which should be a sign of strength for her. Interesting to see that down here. I just want to see by how far is she second. Okay, she's second, but that's a drop. I mean, if that, that's 95% too in these small counties. So she's second, but I don't know what you'd call, that's not a moral victory when it's 61 to 18. So let's turn this off and just come back to the full count. Again, Trump, 15,000 plus, just went up a little bit more as we fill in right now, and it's going to go fast now. In the places that it took a little longer, maybe for the candidate representatives to give their speeches, in places where you have the city dots, where you have more people, so it just takes a little bit longer to get through the process. Now that you see it filling in, every 5 or 10 minutes now, we're going to get a decent amount of more votes. But this has held. This has held, and so has this. The question, we're about 37%. This can be a little bit off, but we're roughly a little over a third of the vote,
Still,
or close to 40% of the vote.
They are in a tug of war here. I mean, like either one of them could end up in second place. I wouldn't bet on either one right now.
I would not. This is the one, especially again when you come out to these the bigger suburban areas, right? I say big. Somebody who lives in Philadelphia or Los Angeles is saying, "Give me a break." For Iowa, your more population centers, the suburban areas here, you're at 1% of the vote, right? So we got a long way to go. Let's move over to Dallas County over here. This is Boone County up here. You're at 33%. Drop down here to Dallas County. By ours, this might be, if that's right, that's a disappointment for Haley right there. It's more rural as you get over to the west, and drop down straight down from Des Moines and Warren County, 80%. So you're looking there, places where you might see Haley boom. It's got to be in the suburbs around these population centers. And again, Woodbury County, only 2% of the voted. Yeah, so we have a ways to go to see in the battle for second place. That's going to the largest pockets of votes are going to come in from the suburbs around the cities, and we're not there yet. We just have a long way to go. Let's just check Lynn County one more time. Yeah, a third of the vote counted. So the battle for second is going to be fought in the votes that are being counted right now.
Yeah, all right. Still ahead, will Donald Trump end the night above 50%? And will Ron DeSantis or Nikki Haley lock up that coveted second place spot? Stay with us as the votes are being counted at Iowa caucus sites, and the numbers keep changing. We'll be right back.
I texted it to you. The number can use sound like yes.